Chapter 470. At the Shinta family's wedding banquet, he had sent the bridegroom, Shinta Miao, flying with a single blow. This was undoubtedly a slap to the Shinta family's face in front of everyone. However, there was another thing that caught everyone's attention. Shinta Miao was a disciple of the Heavenly Saber list. His strength was extraordinary. Even a casual punch from him was not something an ordinary divine soul realm cultivator could withstand. However, that youth had blocked it with one hand. He did not even use his chi. Then with a kick he had sent Shinta Miao flying. This meant that the youth's strength far exceeded Shinta Miao's. Could it be that this youth is not only talented in forging, but his martial cultivation is also extraordinary? Many people looked at Yi Guqin with deep gazes. Zhou Tong's gaze swept up and down, revealing a trace of suspicion. He felt that this youth was somewhat familiar. However, he did not immediately associate him with Yi Guqin. After all, Yi Guqin had never displayed his forging talent. You. On the high seat, Shinta Zhan's expression was solemn. His aura suddenly spread. He did not expect his son, Shinta Miao, to be sent flying with a single blow despite his strength. Where was the Shinta family's face? Moreover, today was the most important day. The Gongsun family was also present. Sure enough, Gongsun Xiaoya pouted and muttered to herself, "He's too weak." Shinta Miao heard this and was about to vomit blood. His gaze was ferocious as he stared at Yi Guqin. He wanted to attack. "If you don't find it embarrassing, you can attack as you wish." Yi Guqin was very calm with his hands behind his back. Shinta Miao's chest heaved as he clenched his fists tightly. However, he did not attack in the end. This was because although it was a simple exchange, that terrifying physical strength had made Shinta Miao extremely wary. Even if he attacked with all his strength, he would not be able to gain the upper hand. "Junior, do you know that today is the wedding banquet of the Shinta family and the Gongsun family? By doing this, are you looking down on our families?" Shinta Zhan said coldly. With his status, it was not appropriate for him to attack directly. Instead, he dragged the Gongsun family into it. Seeing this, Gongsun Xianlong cursed silently. Shinta Zhan actually wanted to drag him down. Gongsun Xianlong had guessed that this youth called Qin might have an expert master behind him. Otherwise, it would be impossible for him to have such an outstanding disciple. As powerful as the Gongsun clan was, they didn't want to offend such an expert. When Yi Guqin heard this, he said indifferently, "Let me take Xiao Wanru away. Your wedding can continue." To be honest, with Yi Guqin's true identity, he really wasn't afraid of the super aristocratic families. "You, a person without any status, dare to speak to me like this?" Shin Tuzhan was so angry that he laughed. "Let go of my Wanru. You're dragging her into the fire pit." Madame Xiao screamed and glared at Yi Guqin. "Enough, let's go. We will not stay in the Shentu family any longer." Xiao Lai shouted coldly and walked towards Yi Guqin. If you don't listen to my advice, you will regret it." Madame Xiao gritted her teeth and shouted. From her point of view, entering the Shinta family was the best choice. "Do you think you can leave today?" Shin Tuzhan said coldly. Immediately, many Divine Soul Realm family guards appeared outside the hall. There were even a few Shintu family elders at the life and death chamber. Clearly, Yi Guqin would not be able to leave unscathed after disturbing the Shinta family's wedding banquet. "Brother Yi," Xiao Wanru whispered. Her beautiful eyes revealed extreme worry. The thing she was most worried about had happened. The dignity of a super aristocratic family was not something that anyone could challenge. In Xiao Wanru's eyes, although Yi Guqin had talent and strength, he had no status or background. How could he withstand the anger of a super aristocratic family? "I'm just an ordinary divine soul realm warrior." To be able to receive such treatment from the Shinta family is really a pleasant surprise. Yi Guqin was very calm from the beginning. Actually, it would be best if he could take Xiao Wanru away safely. However, from the looks of it, that was unlikely. Many people in the surroundings also revealed strange expressions. Even in such a situation, he could still face the Shinta family so calmly. What was the identity of this youth? "Brother Shintu, it's better to avoid trouble. This young friend's forging talent is amazing. I'm afraid his future achievements will not be low." At this moment, Gongsun Xianlong spoke. He admired Yi Guqin very much, so he naturally did not want to see a blacksmithing genius fall. That will depend on whether this person is tactful or not. If he is willing to kneel on the ground and kowtow to apologize, perhaps I can forgive his offense today. Of course, the Xiao family will not let him take her away. Shin Tuzhan said proudly. Sigh, young friend, let's take a step back. Gongsun Xianlong sighed. Yi Guchen's eyes revealed a strange look. He did not expect Gongsun Xianlong to speak up for him. Beside him, Xiao Wanru bit her lips and said, I'm sorry, Mr. Yi. It's Wanru's fault. I should not have dragged you down. Wanru is already very happy that you came, so... Xiao Wanru steeled her heart and decided to stay. She did not want to be a burden to Yi Guchen. Young friend, thank you very much. But now you should leave first. Xiao Lai also cupped his fists towards Yi Guchen gratefully. Yi Guchen sighed. Indeed, just relying on his identity as a forging genius was not enough to make the Shinta family fear him. At this moment, Madame Xiao said sarcastically, Kid, have you seen reality? Do you think you are a savior? What about now? What can you do? You can't do anything. In front of the Shinta family, you are nothing. She turned to look at Xiao Lai. Xiao Wanru said, Do you understand now? Am I right? I asked you to stay in the Shinta family, but you are unwilling. Xiao Lai and Xiao Wanru lowered their heads silently. Just when everyone thought that this youth would give in, Yi Guchen said in an extremely indifferent tone, I'm sorry. Today, I want to take someone away. No one can stop me, not even the Shinta family. Once these words were said, everyone was shocked. Those who came to attend the wedding banquet, including some geniuses, were all astonished. They had never seen someone who overestimated their own capabilities like that. Did you see that, Brother Xianlong? It's not that I don't want to forgive him. It's just that he doesn't know what's good for him. Since that's the case, I can only teach him a lesson. Shin Tuzhan said coldly. He waved his hand slightly, and the Divine Soul Realm guards on the periphery rushed towards Yi Guchen, wanting to suppress and capture him. Yi Guchen's eyes flashed coldly. His feet moved, and without using any qi, he punched out with his fists and legs. The sound was like thunder. One by one, the guards spat out blood and flew backwards. Even experts at the 7th or 8th transformation of the Divine Soul Realm were the same. Seeing this, the surrounding people were slightly shocked. The smithing genius martial arts strength was beyond their expectations. Seeing this, Shin Tuzhan's face became gloomier. His eyes flashed slightly, and an elder at the life and death chamber threw out a palm attack. Be careful. Xiao Wanru saw this, and her expression changed as she cried out in alarm. Yi Guchen's eyes narrowed, and his physical strength surged as he threw out a punch as well. Bang! There was a loud explosion, and a shockwave spread out. Yi Guchen retreated more than 10 steps. This shockwave also flipped the bamboo hat on Yi Guchen's head. A handsome face that was as sharp as a knife was revealed in front of everyone's eyes. At this moment, everyone's gaze froze. Shin Tuzhan, Shin Miao, Zhou Tong, Ren Tingting, and the others' faces were filled with shock. How is this possible? It's actually you, Yi Guchen. The entire hall seemed to be frozen. Disbelief and shock appeared on everyone's faces. Chapter 471. Under the bamboo hat was a face that no one had expected. They had never imagined that the youth who had amazed everyone at the blacksmith convention like a resplendent shooting star was actually the sword sex Yi Guchen. This result was too unexpected, causing many people to be stunned and unable to regain their senses for a moment. Only Xiao Wanru and a few others were slightly confused because they had never seen the sword sex's true appearance. However, at this moment when she heard the name Yi Guchen, Xiao Wanru's mind seemed to have been struck by lightning. She froze on the spot. Her gaze suddenly focused on Yi Guchen's face, as if she wanted to examine him carefully. This silent youth who had been escorting them, and had even been scolded by Madame Xiao, was the sword sex Yi Guchen who had swept through his peers with invincible sword power? Xiao Wanru's delicate body trembled as she retreated. An unprecedented shock and paleness appeared on her pretty face. Looking at everyone's shocked expressions, how could Xiao Wanru not know that the youth in front of her was indeed the sword sect that she had admired for a long time? When she thought of this, extreme regret, pain, and shame emerged from the bottom of her heart, almost suffocating her. That night at the campfire, she had reprimanded the youth for slandering the sword sect, and even looked down on him because of this. In the end, he was the sword sect and was only reflecting on herself. Later, due to Madame Zhao's influence, Xiao Wanru and Yi Guqin had distanced themselves from each other. As a result, at the gates of northern Liang City, Xiao Wanru had chosen to believe Madame Xiao when faced with Yi Guqin's kind help, and had ignored the jade slip. If not for Xiao Wanru's regret and picking up the jade slip, perhaps she could only choose to endure the endless humiliation and marry into the Shinto family today. All of this had been given to her by Yi Guqin. As for Xiao Wanru herself, she had personally rejected Yi Guqin because she believed in Madame Xiao. She had even said something as stupid as, "We are not from the same world." Xiao Wanru smiled with incomparable bitterness and self-mockery. Ignoring the fact that she could only be a concubine or servant girl in the Shinto family, so what if she became the young madam of the Shinto family? Compared to the sword sect, the difference was still like heaven and earth. At this moment, incomparable regret spread in Xiao Wanru's heart, forming a thick bitterness. Xiao Lai was also stunned in place, unable to regain his senses for a long time. His guess was actually correct. This young man was really Yi Guqin. Soon after, Xiao Lai's gaze fiercely turned towards Madame Xiao, a strong sense of disappointment and anger shooting out from his eyes. The Xiao clan had personally excluded Yi Guqin, the great god, from their clan. Instead, he was willing to come to the Shinto family and suffer humiliation. How ironic was this scene? However, no one was as shocked as Madame Xiao. Her lips were trembling and her face was extremely pale. Her mind was completely blank because of the shock. She couldn't even think. Plop! Madame Zhao's legs went soft from fear, and she collapsed to the ground. Her dress was soaked, and it emitted a foul smell. Madame Xiao had actually wet herself from fear. No. It can't be. Madame Xiao was stupefied as she mumbled to herself. Her face, which was covered with thick makeup, was trembling uncontrollably. What had she done? Madame Xiao could not imagine it herself. Who was Yi Guqin? He was a sword master, one of the 7 great powers, and the most outstanding person in the sword sect Pagoda Forest. At the same time, he was the successor of the sword king Feng Manlu. Against such a person, not to mention Shinto Miao, even the entire Shinto family would not be able to touch him. However, Madame Xiao had always been prejudiced against Yi Guqin, mocking and ridiculing him. Thinking about it now, Madame Xiao felt a lingering fear. However, what she felt more was regret, extreme regret. Yi Guqin's status was much higher than Shinto Miao's. Madame Xiao did not choose Yi Guqin, but chose Shinto Miao instead. She was undoubtedly blind, picking up sesame seeds and throwing away watermelons. The surrounding people looked at Madame Xiao with playful gazes. They had previously heard how disrespectful Madame Xiao was to Yi Guqin. On the other side, Gongsun Xiaoya's beautiful eyes were bright, and there was a trace of excitement. Yi Guqin, who was disguised as Shun, had defeated Gongsun Xiaoya in blacksmithing, which had won her over. During the exchange, Yi Guqin had defeated everyone with his sword, which made Gongsun Xiaoya admire him even more. Now among her peers, the only 2 people whom she admired were the same person. This was undoubtedly like a dream. In comparison, Shinto Miao was simply a fool. Gongsun Xiaoya's heart thumped, and she was actually a little moved. On the high seats, Shinto Zhan and Gongsun Xuanlong's faces were also frozen. Gongsun Xianlong was still fine, but he was a little surprised. He did not expect that Yi Guqin, who was unparalleled in the way of the sword, was also proficient in blacksmithing. As for Shinto Zhan, his face darkened. If it were anyone else, Shinto Zhan would not find it difficult to deal with. However, Yi Guqin was different. Whether it was his identity as an inner court disciple of the sword sect Pagoda Forest, or as the successor of Feng Manlu, he was not an existence that a super family like him could provoke. One could imagine what would happen if Yi Guqin met with an accident in the Shinto family today. It would not be long before the entire sword sect Pagoda Forest came to kill him. Not only him, but the other guests also had the same thought. The Zhao family head and the others looked at Shinto Zhan's gloomy face, and felt a faint joy in their hearts. This time, They had finally kicked an iron plate. Yi Guchen's face was calm as he looked at the various expressions of the people around him. Since his identity had been exposed, it did not matter. Yi Guchen swept a glance at the Xiao family and the others. Xiao Wanru was extremely ashamed, regretful, and self-blaming. Xiao Lai was also sighing. As for Madame Xiao, her body was curled up, and she did not even dare to look at Yi Guchen. Her shrewish attitude had been completely restrained. Yi Guchen did not care too much. From the beginning to the end, Madame Xiao was not in his eyes. May I ask, Shinta family head, you previously thought that I did not have the qualifications to take Xiao Wanru away. Now, can I take her away? Yi Guchen said indifferently. You. Shinta Zhan felt a lump in his throat, unable to release it. Now he was the one who was in a difficult position. If he let Xiao Wanru go, it would undoubtedly be a disgrace to the Shinta family. If he did not let her go, then Yi Guchen would not let it go. With his identity, the Shinta family could not do anything to him. Brother Yi, today is the Shinta family's wedding. It's not good for you to openly steal the bride. At this moment, Zhou Tong took a step forward and said indifferently. Yi Guchen glanced at him coldly. Zhou Tong was everywhere. It has nothing to do with you. Yi Guchen could not be bothered to speak further. Zhou Tong was still smiling. He felt that the Shinta family would not compromise so easily. Sure enough, Shinta Zhan's expression was uncertain. Then he said to Gongsun Xianlong, Brother Xianlong, may I ask if you can inform Grandfather Gongsun to come over? When everyone heard this, their expressions changed slightly. Was Shinta Zhan trying to use the Gongsun family's name? After all, the Gongsun family's status was very special. Even the 7 major factions would not do anything to the Gongsun family. Brother Shintuyu. Gongsun Xuanlong's expression turned ugly. Brother Xianlong, don't forget about the blacksmith's letter. Shinta Zhan said in a low voice. When Gongsun Xianlong heard this, although his expression was ugly, he gritted his teeth and informed Gongsun Yu. Seeing Shinta Zhan regain his confidence, Yi Guchen's gaze was calm. It seemed that Shinta Zhan would not give up until all hope was gone. Chapter 472. Yi Guchen, on the other hand, did not make a move. He just stood there calmly. Since Shinta Zhan still insisted, Yi Guchen would make him give up completely. Seeing Yi Guchen alone make the entire Shinta family not dare to make a move, the surrounding guests sighed in their hearts. This was the benefit of status. If he did not have the status of sword sex talent and wind-sweeping building's successor, Yi Guchen would have been easily suppressed by the Shinta family, even if he had unparalleled talent. But now, Yi Guchen was standing in the middle of the hall, wanting to take Xiao Wanru away. The Shinta family did not dare to make a move against him. Of course, the average person would not have Yi Guchen's boldness. After all, not everyone would be willing to offend the Shinta family for an ordinary girl. Lord Yi. Xiao Wanru wanted to say something, but stopped. Her face was filled with complex emotions and regret. Yi Guchen had actually offended the entire Shinta family for her. If it were anyone else, they might not have done so. I said that if you crushed the jade slip, I would help you once. If you did not pick up the jade slip, I would not have appeared today. Yi Guchen said calmly. Xiao Wanru smiled bitterly when she heard this. If her heart had not changed back then, perhaps now, there would not be any distance between her and Yi Guchen. Xiao Lai could only sigh when he saw this scene. In fact, it was them who had personally drawn the line with Yi Guchen. As for Madame Xiao, her mind was still blank, as if she had suffered a great blow. The atmosphere in the hall suddenly fell into silence. Obviously, no matter what the outcome was, the Shinta family would definitely lose face. Shinta Miao stared gloomily at Yi Guchen. However, he did not dare to make a move. This was because he knew that even if the 3 blades of the Sealed Saber King Palace joined forces, they would not be able to stop Yi Guchen. This person was a malignant star among the elites. I heard that Yi Guchen was poisoned by the Blood Barbarian tribe's blood-dissolving demonic poison. Why does he still look so normal? A small number of people whispered to each other. Zhou Tong's eyes flickered slightly. Everyone in the arena had witnessed the Blood Barbarian life and death chamber attack on Yi Guchen, causing Yi Guchen to be poisoned by the blood-dissolving demonic poison. But now, Yi Guqin seemed to be normal. There were no signs of poisoning. Are you deliberately hiding it? Zhou Tong gave a deep look at Yi Guqin. Time slowly. Around 15 minutes later, a figure descended from the sky outside the hall. Before the person came in, a coarse and old roar spread out. Which blind brat dares to disturb the wedding of the Huang Gongsun family? This roar contained the pressure of the divine soul, which was incomparably shocking. Many guests of the step his face changed their others heaven and earth spiritual bridge expert. It's old man Gongsun. Gongsun Yu is here. Yi Guqin frowned slightly. Gongsun Yu was the only 4-star blacksmith in the Gongsun family. At the same time, he was also a heaven and earth spiritual bridge expert. He could be said to be the pillar of the Gongsun family. However, Yi Guqin was puzzled. What method did Shin Tizhan use to make Gongsun Yu come personally? Moreover, this marriage was strange. It was obvious that Gongsun Xiaoye didn't like Shin Miao. The marriage between the two families must have some purpose. Just as Yi Guqin was pondering, a white-bearded old man with a rosy face stepped in. He was hale and hearty, and his aura was strong. Although he was old, he didn't have the slightest trace of lethargy. It was Gongsun Yu. Greetings, old man Gongsun. Greetings, senior Gongsun Yu. As soon as Gongsun Yu entered, many people cupped their fists in respect. From this, one could see Gongsun Yu's status and influence. After all, a 4-star blacksmith was an extremely rare existence in the Saint Origin dynasty. If Gongsun Yu could break through and become a 5-star blacksmith, he would be second to none in the Saint Origin dynasty. No one would dare to provoke him. Gongsun Yu did not pay attention to the others. Instead, he looked at Yi Guqin and said, "Are you Yi Guqin, the one who caused a storm in northern Liang City recently?" What Gongsun Yu said was true. Whether it was the exchange or the merit conference, Yi Guqin's name had spread throughout northern Liang City. Even the blacksmith genius who caused a sensation in the blacksmith conference was Yi Guqin. "That's me. Greetings, senior Gongsun." Yi Guqin nodded calmly. "Well, you've caused enough trouble today. Why don't you give this old man some face?" Gongsun Yu said calmly. Hearing this, the surrounding people were slightly surprised. Gongsun Yu had always been known for his fiery temper. They didn't expect him to be so calm in front of Yi Guqin. However, they didn't know, but Gongsun Yu did. After the merit conference, Feng Manlu of the Sword Sect Pagoda Forest had gone to the Blood Barbarian tribe. There were some vague news that the Blood Barbarian tribe had encountered an unprecedented disaster. The news hadn't spread completely, but Gongsun Yu had received the news long ago. Although Feng Manlu was also at the Spirit Bridge stage like him, his battle strength couldn't be measured by the Spirit Bridge stage. Even an ordinary Divine Dwelling stage expert wouldn't be a match for Feng Manlu. Yi Guqin was the successor of Feng Manlu. Therefore, even Gongsun Yu wouldn't go too far. Although he wasn't afraid of Feng Manlu, he didn't want to provoke him. On the other side, Shin Tizhan's expression changed slightly. He thought Gongsun Yu would oppress Yi Guqin forcefully. He didn't expect Gongsun Yu to be so gentle. "Sorry, I can leave if you want, but you have to take them with you." Yi Guqin pointed at Xiao Wanru and the others. "Kid, is there a need to go so far for an ordinary woman?" Gongsun Yu frowned slightly. With his status, Yi Guqin didn't give him any face even though he had spoken. Of course. This Yi is a man of his word. "I keep my word," Yi Guqin said indifferently. Gongsun Yu was so angry that he was fuming. This marriage wasn't just a marriage alliance. It was also related to whether he could obtain the Shinta family's artificer's letter and become a 5-star artificer. Although Gongsun Yu was extremely unhappy that the Shinta family was threatening him with this, he really wanted to break through to the 5-star realm. "Old Master Gongsun, please resolve this problem. After the wedding, you will naturally get what you want," Shin Tizhan said. Gongsun Yu glared at Shin Tizhan. If Shin Tizhan didn't have the artificer's letter, Gongsun Yu would have taught this guy a lesson for using him as a tool. Yi Guqin, I can't touch you, but Gongsun Yu can," Shin Tizhan sneered, as if his scheme had succeeded. "Kid, I'm sorry. If you are stubborn, I can only capture you temporarily. After the wedding is over, I will get the elders of your Sword Sect's Pagoda Forest to capture you," Gongsun Yu said coldly. He didn't dare to do anything to Yi Guchen, so he could only capture him. Just as everyone thought that Yi Guchen would be captured, Yi Guchen suddenly spoke. Senior, please wait. May I ask what benefits the Shinto family has promised you? Chapter 473. Yi Guchen's words caused the entire hall to suddenly become silent. Many people looked at Yi Guchen. What did he mean? However, there were many people whose eyes were flickering. This was because this marriage alliance was indeed unusual. Although the Shinto family and the Gongsun family were both super families, the Gongsun family was obviously more powerful. With the Gongsun family's status, there was no need for them to lower themselves and marry their precious daughter to Shinto Miao. The Shinto family also did not have anything that could catch the Gongsun family's eye. If that was the case, why would the Gongsun family be willing to marry Gongsun Xiaoya off? Many people were puzzled. Now that Yi Guchen had pointed it out, many people had their own thoughts. Especially the Zhao family head and a few others. They did not understand why the Gongsun family would choose the Shinto family. Kid, what nonsense are you talking about? Gongsun Yu stared. He actually did not want this news to spread. Sacrificing his granddaughter's happiness for himself to break through to become a 5-star blacksmith was not a good reputation. Shinto Zhan had a calm expression. He did not care if the news was leaked, as long as the final result was good. Senior, there is no need to rush to explain. I am not speaking nonsense. If my guess is correct, with Senior's status, Shinto Zhan does not have the qualifications to move you. Then, it can only mean that Senior has something to ask of Shinto Zhan. Senior's status is extraordinary. I believe that ordinary things are unable to move Senior. Something that can move Senior must be something that moves Senior the most. Senior is a blacksmith and is obsessed with blacksmithing. Then, something that moves Senior must be related to blacksmithing. And I heard that Senior has been stuck at the peak of 4-star blacksmith for a long time, unable to break through to 5-star. Then may I make a bold guess? Is the item that Shinto Zhan is offering something that can help Senior break through to become a 5-star blacksmith? Yi Guchen's words left the entire hall in dead silence. Gongsun Yu's expression changed, as if he had been seen through. Shinto Zhan's eyes also revealed a strange expression as he looked deeply at Yi Guchen. Zhou Tong looked at Yi Guchen in astonishment. All along in Zhou Tong's eyes, Yi Guchen only had strength but no intelligence. But now, Yi Guchen's deduction and conjecture actually made Zhou Tong feel that it was perfect, as if it was indeed the case. When he saw Gongsun Yu's expression, Yi Guchen knew that his guess was most likely correct. However, Yi Guchen was puzzled as to what the Shinto family could offer that would allow Gongsun Yu to break through to the 5-star realm. At this moment, the sound of clapping could be heard. Everyone looked over. It was actually Shinto Zhan who was clapping. Yi Guchen, you have indeed exceeded my expectations, but so what? So what if you have guessed correctly? Can you change anything? The marriage between our two families is something that benefits both sides. By blowing up this matter today, not only are you provoking the Shinto family, you are also putting old man Gongsun in an awkward position. Can you bear the consequences? Shinto Zhan sneered. The Gongsun family was a blacksmithing family. In terms of background and connections, they were not inferior to the 7 major factions. Yi Guchen's identity was indeed extraordinary, but no matter what, he was only at the Divine Soul realm and an inner courtyard disciple. He could not influence the will of the Sword Sect Pagoda Forest. As for Feng Manlu, no matter how protective he was, he could not act against 2 superfamilies because of Yi Guchen alone. It was also because of this that Shinto Zhan was confident. No matter how much trouble Yi Guchen caused today, the outcome was ultimately destined. Junior, you have heard it. It is about time now. If you leave, I will not pursue your responsibility. This is also on account of the Wind Sword King. Gongsun Yu's tone sank slightly. With his status, this was already the greatest concession he could make. Young Master Yi, thank you, but now let's forget about it. Xiao Wanru went forward and said. Xiao Lai also nodded. They had all seen Yi Guchen's attitude. They knew that Yi Guchen had already done his best. Yi Guchen smiled and changed the topic to Shinto Zhan. May I ask what benefits the Shinto family can bring to the Gongsun family? Shinta-jean snorted and took out a book. He wanted to make Yi Guchen give up completely. This is a blacksmith's handbook that my Shinta family has painstakingly obtained. It records the experiences of the South Sky region's blacksmiths. Is such a priceless item the best betrothal gift for the Gongsun family? Shinta-jean's words caused an uproar in the hall. Some of the blacksmiths looked at the book in Shinta-jean's hand with unconcealable passion in their eyes. The handbook of the South Sky region's blacksmiths was indeed priceless. After all, the blacksmiths of the South Sky region and the Saint Origin dynasty were on a completely different level. There was no lack of blacksmiths in the South Sky region who could forge Heaven Tribulation divine weapons. In the Saint Origin dynasty, Heaven Tribulation divine weapons were rarely seen. When Shinta-jean took out the handbook, Gong Sun Yu's breathing became rapid. Even with his status, he had lost his composure. It could be seen how important this handbook was to him. The key to becoming a 5-star blacksmith might lie in this handbook. Looking at Gong Sun Yu's gaze, Shinta-jean was very satisfied. As long as this handbook was in his hands, the marriage between the two families would be as stable as Mount Tai. However, Yi Guchen, on the other hand, had a strange look in his eyes. Is this handbook very precious? Yi Guchen's words stunned the crowd once again. Was the handbook of the South Sky region's blacksmiths not precious? Youngster, you are, after all, an artificer. How could you not know how precious a master's personal letter is? Even if it's only a tiny bit of the comprehension contained within it, it would still be very beneficial. Gong Sun Yu berated sternly. It seemed that as long as it was related to blacksmithing, Gong Sun Yu's attitude would be very extreme. Haha, you don't even care about a master's handbook. Now I really wonder if your first place in the blacksmith convention is fake. Shinta-jean also laughed. Yi Guchen saw the attitude of the people around him, and knew that they thought he was a frog at the bottom of a well. But what was the truth? Yi Guchen did have a lot of handbooks like this. They were all left for him by the old drunkard. Yi Guchen did not know exactly how many stars the old drunkard was as a blacksmith. But he was definitely better than Gong Sun Yu. Moreover, the old drunkard seemed to have wandered from the South Sky region to the Saint Origin dynasty. So the handbook he left behind should be better than Shinta-jean's handbook. The reason I said this is because I also have a blacksmith's handbook, and there is more than one. Yi Guchen took out a stack of books. And it was not just 1 or 2 books, but more than a dozen. These were all left behind by the old drunkard. With his level of blacksmithing, there were indeed a lot of handbooks left behind. Seeing Yi Guchen take out so many handbooks, Shinta-jean was not surprised. Instead, he laughed as if he had seen the funniest joke. What a joke! Do you think a master's handbook is toilet paper? Who are you trying to fool by taking out so many? Old man Gongsun? Chapter 474. Hearing Yi Guchen's words and seeing Yi Guchen take out a pile of letters, many of the people present began to laugh. If Yi Guchen took out a single letter, there might be some people who would believe it. However, taking out a thick stack of letters, the credibility was not very high. A master's letter was an extremely precious item. It could be said that it was something that could not be bought with crystal jades. How could Yi Guchen possess so many master's letters? Not only Shinta-jean, but even Gong Sun Yu's face turned gloomy. It was fine if the junior in front of him did not give him any face, but he actually dared to use a fake to deceive him. If it were anyone else, Gong Sun Yu would have already slapped them. Junior, do you really think I'm an old fool? Gong Sun Yu's tone already had a trace of unfriendliness. With his status, how could he be fooled by a junior? If this were to spread, where would he put his face as a master blacksmith? Senior Gongsun, are you not even willing to take a look? Yi Guchen raised his eyebrows slightly. You want me to take a look? If I were to take a look today, where would I put my face? Gong Sun Yu coldly snorted. Shinta-jean laughed heartily and said, Yi Guchen, you don't have to waste your effort. Old man Gongsun, to express my sincerity, I can lend you half of the letters. Are you serious? Gong Sun Yu's old eyes immediately lit up. Haha, of course. Shinta-jean split the letter into 2 and gave one half to Gong Sun Yu. Since this letter was not of much use to the Shinta family, he might as well do them a favor. Gong Sun Yu carefully held the letter in his hands as if he had received a treasure. He carefully read it, and his face revealed a complicated expression, sometimes puzzled, and sometimes enlightened expression. Seeing the impatient Gongsun Yu openly reading the letter in the main hall, the crowd present all clicked their tongues and sighed. This time, the Shinta family had grasped the lifeline of the Gongsun family. Amazing, amazing! There's actually such a forging method. I have never heard of or seen it before. As expected of a top blacksmith in the South Horizon region. After skimming through it, Gongsun Yu couldn't help but exclaim in admiration again and again. He was practically dancing with joy like an old urchin. To him, the value of this master's letter was astonishing. May I ask if Elder Gongsuan's sincerity is enough? Shin Tizhan asked with a smile. When he saw Gongsun Yu's performance, he knew that the outcome was already decided. Enough, of course it's enough. Xiao Yu marry Shin Miao now immediately. Gongsun Yu couldn't wait to get his hands on the complete letter. Grandpa. Gongsun Xiaoya pouted her pink lips, her face full of reluctance. After seeing someone as outstanding as Yi Guchen, she looked down on the idiot Shin Miao even more. Moreover, Gongsun Xiaoya had said before that she would marry anyone who could surpass her in smithing art. And Yi Guchen had undoubtedly stirred up Gongsun Xiaoya's maiden heart. If she were to marry Shin Miao now, it would be even more disgusting than eating a fly. However, looking at Gongsun Yu's resolute attitude, Gongsun Xiaoya knew that she had no chance. Brother Yi. Gongsun Xiaoya cast a pitiful gaze at Yi Guchen. Since he was determined to take Xiao Wanru away, could he also get her along with him? Hearing Gongsun Xiaoya's coquettish words, even Yi Guchen felt a little uncomfortable. However, looking at Shin Tizhan's smug expression, Yi Guchen's expression didn't change at all. He turned to look at Gongsun Xianlong and said, I would like to show the letter to clan head Gongsun. I wonder if clan head Gongsun would do me the honor? As soon as Yi Guchen's words came out, everyone present revealed a strange expression. Could it be that Yi Guchen still hadn't given up? Sigh, Yi Guchen's pestering endlessly is a little tarnishing of his reputation as a sword master. Zhou Tong said with a sigh of regret. His words were agreed by the others. A dignified sword master was making jokes at someone else's wedding and even fooling around. If news of this were to spread, it would indeed be a disgrace. Perhaps he's not lying. After all, he's also the champion of the blacksmith convention. LV Qinghan speculated. Senior sister, you're wrong. Let's wait and see, Zhou Tong said with a faint smile. On the other side, Gongsun Xianlong was a little hesitant. In fact, he had a good impression of Yi Guchen. He even wanted to rope him in to join the Gongsun clan. However, now that Yi Guchen had taken out a pile of master's letters, it was indeed a little suspicious. Such precious letters were not cabbages that could be found everywhere. However, looking at Yi Guchen's calm expression, it didn't seem like he was lying. Furthermore, Gongsun Xianlong had guessed that Yi Guchen probably had the help of a blacksmith expert. Therefore, it wasn't impossible. Thinking of this, Gongsun Xianlong stood up and prepared to look at Yi Guchen's letters. When Shin Tizhan saw this, he couldn't help but laugh. Brother Xianlong, have you lost your mind? You actually dared to listen to the nonsense of a junior. Such a master's letter is extremely precious. How could he possibly take it out? Gongsun Xianlong sighed and didn't say much. He would just treat it as if he were on good terms with Yi Guchen. Yi Guchen handed a letter to Gongsun Xianlong. Gongsun Xianlong casually flipped through it. His expression was calm at first, then slowly turned serious, and finally extremely surprised. What's going on? Seeing Gongsun Xianlong's constantly changing expression, some of the surrounding people were puzzled. Shin Tizhan's heart skipped a beat as he stared at Gongsun Xianlong. Yi Guchen looked at Gongsun Xianlong indifferently. With his blacksmithing skills, there was no way he couldn't understand this letter. Xianlong, how is it? Is that kid lying to me? On the other side, Gongsun Yu was still holding on to half of the letter, as if it was a treasure as he asked Gongsun Xianlong. To be honest, in my opinion, there's no order at all. I can't understand it at all. Gongsun Xianlong smiled bitterly. He really couldn't understand the meaning of the insights in the letter. Haha, Yi Guchen, how is it? Have you given up now? Shintajan heard this and quietly relaxed. Thinking of how nervous he was just now, he found it laughable. Senior sister, did you see it? I'm not wrong, right? Zhou Tong said confidently as he waved his folding fan. I didn't expect it to be so. LV Qinghan sighed slightly. Yi Guqin had indeed lost the sword sex reputation by taking out a fake letter. Yi Guqin shook his head slightly. It seemed that he had overestimated Gongsun Xuanlong's level. However, on second thought, with the old drunkard's level, ordinary people wouldn't be able to understand it. You can't understand it? Gongsun Yu's eyes revealed a trace of suspicion. He directly snatched the letter from Gongsun Xuanlong's hand and casually glanced at it. Then his old face completely froze. His pair of old eyes were wide open as he stared at the letter. The expression on his face became extremely interesting. Haha, old Master Gongsun, don't be calculative with a junior. Just send him away. Shintajan saw this and said with a smile. Don't bother me. Scram. Gongsun Yu suddenly roared like a lion from the east. His old face was extremely excited and red, as if he had discovered a new continent. Shintajan, who was scolded, was stunned and a little dumbfounded. What was going on? It wasn't just Shintajan. Everyone present, including Zhou Tong and LV Qinghan, was stunned. Why did old Master Gongsun suddenly seem like a different person? Chapter 475. Master, definitely a Grandmaster level blacksmith. Heavens, which Grandmaster left this handbook behind? Such forging techniques have refreshed my knowledge. Gongsun Yu was in a frenzy. In a short period of time, he had scanned through the entire handbook. He felt as if he had been enlightened, but he still wanted to continue. Compared to this handbook, the half-written handbook that Shintajan had given him was extremely crude and unbearable to look at. However, after hearing Gongsun Yu's words, all the guests present were dumbfounded, just like Shintajan. Yi Guqin had really taken out a Grandmaster-level handbook? Zhou Tong's face turned slightly stiff, and he felt a little embarrassed. LV Qinghan was the same. They were still discussing how Yi Guqin had taken out a fake handbook, and how it would damage the sword sex reputation. However, from the looks of it, what he had taken out was indeed the real handbook. Not only that, from Gongsun Yu's attitude, the handbook's level was probably even higher than Shintajan's. Thinking of this, even a cold fairy like LV Qinghan blushed, feeling a little embarrassed. On the other side, Shintajan was still in a daze. After a long while, Shintajan said with a slight pause, Old man Gongsun, did you see wrongly? How could this kid have such a precious handbook? Are you doubting my level? Gongsun Yu coldly glanced at Shintajan. No, how could that be possible? It's just that. Why don't I let you take a look at the entire handbook? This handbook is definitely 1 in a million. Shintajan was really panicking this time, and directly handed the remaining half of the handbook to Gongsun Yu. Gongsun Yu casually took it and glanced at it. If he had not seen Yi Guqin's handbook, Gongsun Yu might have been excited and gained many insights. However, now after seeing the old drunkard's handbook, Gongsun Yu only felt that Shintajan's handbook was extremely superficial, and its level was only slightly higher than his. When he thought of how he had forced his beloved granddaughter to marry off for such a lousy handbook, Gongsun Yu felt a surge of anger in his heart. He naturally could not blame himself, so he could only vent his anger on the Shintu family. In this old man's opinion, this bullshit is worse than toilet paper in the latrine. Gongsun Yu said as he tore the handwritten letter into pieces. Shintajan's face was extremely pale as he looked at the flying pieces of paper. He took a few steps back. The Shintu and Gongsun family's greatest support had been torn apart by Gongsun Yu with his own hands. Shintajan felt as if he had been struck by lightning. For a moment, he was unable to stand steadily. Father! Shinta Miao's expression was extremely unsightly as well, and his entire body was trembling. How could he not know that the reason why Gongsun Xiaoya married him was because of this letter? But now the Shinta family's trump card was gone. Everything started with Yi Guqin. On the other hand, Yi Guqin remained indifferent from beginning to end. He wasn't surprised at all when he saw Gongsun Yu tear up the letter. But Gongsun Yu's gaze turned towards Yi Guqin. His originally stern old face was now smiling like a withered chrysanthemum. Junior, oh no, little friend I didn't expect that the dignified sword master would also be a forging genius. Now it seems that you are indeed a talented person. A dragon among men. This old man also admires you very much. Gong Sun Yu's words made many people roll their eyes. This old guy changed his face faster than flipping a book. I dare not accept elder's praise. Yi Guchen raised his brows slightly. Gong Sun Yu was really a clown. He had never seen such a thick-skinned elder. That little friend, where did these letters come from? Gong Sun Yu laughed dryly. No comment. Yi Guchen said indifferently. He naturally couldn't reveal the old drunkard's location. Some people looked at Yi Guchen with admiration. Even divine-dwelling experts did not dare to speak to Gong Sun Yu in such a tone. Gong Sun Yu didn't mind. He coughed dryly and said, Then I wonder if little friend Yi can lend these letters to this old man for a look? Elder seemed to have said before that if you read my letters, where would your face be? Yi Guchen said casually. That. Gong Sun Yu's smile stiffened. This was simply slapping his own face. But fortunately, Gong Sun Yu's skin was thick enough and he didn't mind. He said, Isn't that because you were bewitched by that bastard Shintajan? You want to climb up the Gong Sun family, with just this toilet paper? You're dreaming. Shintajan's face was as black as the bottom of a pot. Gong Sun Xiaoya's eyes were bright as she said excitedly, Grandfather, then Xiaoya doesn't have to marry Shinta Miao, right? Of course. How can I let you marry such a savage? Granddaughter. What do you think of little friend Yi? He's a talented person, a dragon among men. It's not bad to be the son-in-law of the Gong Sun family. Gong Sun Yu smiled. Hooray! Gong Sun Xiaoya cried out. Then her figure flashed, and she pounced on Yi Guchen's back like an octopus, hugging him tightly. That. Even Yi Guchen was a little stunned. This grandfather-granddaughter pair was too much of a child's play. Crack. Shinta Miao's face was ashen, and the veins all over his body bulged. They were still at the wedding banquet, and Gong Sun Xiaoya was even wearing a wedding dress. In the end, she pounced on Yi Guchen. Many people around looked at Yi Guchen and Gong Sun Xiaoya, and then looked at Shinta Miao. Why did it feel like there was a dazzling green light above Shinta Miao's head? Miss Gong Sun, please come down. Yi Guchen frowned slightly. Being hugged by a young girl in such an indecent position made Yi Guchen feel very awkward. I've decided to marry you, Gong Sun Xiaoya said with a smile. Her words were shocking. Shintajan, Shinta Miao, and the others were so angry that their blood boiled. Was today the Shinta family's wedding banquet? Or was it Yi Guchen's wedding banquet? Sorry, I don't have such intentions at the moment. Come down first, Yi Guchen said calmly. What a fool. Could it be that you already have someone in mind? It's all right. If it really doesn't work out, I'll lower myself to be your concubine. Gong Sun Xiaoya's eyes darted around as she asked unwillingly. Yi Guchen was really too outstanding. In martial arts and forging he was a genius. In addition, he was handsome, and had created all kinds of legendary deeds. It was enough to make Gong Sun Xiaoya a love-struck fool. Xiao Wanru's face paled when she heard that, and she smiled bitterly. The young girl that Shinta Miao had to treat with caution was now shamelessly marrying Yi Guchen, and was even willing to be his concubine. Shinta Miao was so angry that his teeth were chattering. Bitch. Shinta Miao could not calm the anger in his chest. He gritted his teeth and said in a low voice, Gong Sun Yu's old eyes shone with a sharp light, and he released his aura. With a boom, Shinta Miao was sent flying. His red wedding robe was torn to shreds, and he spat out a large mouthful of blood. He collapsed on the ground and fainted. Shintajan's expression changed and he hurried forward. His heart was bleeding. Today, I announce that the marriage alliance between the two families is cancelled. In the future, my Gong Sun family and the Shinta family will have nothing to do with each other. Gong Sun Yu drew a clear line between himself and the Shinta family. With that, everyone knew that the outcome was set. The Shinta family's dream of relying on the Gong Sun family to rise to the top was shattered. Chapter 476. They looked at Shinta Miao, who had fainted on the ground. Then they looked at Shintajan, whose eyes were bloodshot. Many guests sighed. Who would have thought that the high-spirited Shinta family, which was about to rise, would be reduced to such a miserable state because of Yi Guqin? Shintajan must be feeling extremely regretful. If he had not insisted on Yi Guqin staying, if he had just let the Xiao family go, the outcome would not have been so bad. Perhaps the outcome wouldn't be so bad. Perhaps the marriage could still be established. If there was anything to blame, it could only be blamed on Shintajan's stubbornness. Among the people present, the happiest were the Zhao family head and a few others. If the Shinta family had climbed up the Gongsun family's branch, then the other families would have been suppressed by the Shinta family. But now, the Shinta family had suffered a double loss. Not only did they not have a good relationship with the Gongsun family, but they had also fallen out with the Gongsun family. It could be seen that the Shinta family's reputation and influence would be greatly affected in the future. It could even plummet. Seeing this, Yi Guqin lightly shook his head. If Shintajan had allowed him to take Xiao Wanru away safely, then all of this might not have happened. That little friend about the handbook. Gong Sunyu laughed dryly, rubbing his hands. He was obviously very eager. Now Gong Sunyu had both fame and status. His only goal was to break through to become a 5-star blacksmith. I'll lend these books to you first. I believe it will be enough for you to understand. Yi Guqin handed the basic handbook to Gong Sunyu. Gong Sunyu hurriedly received it, holding it carefully as if he had received a treasure. Thank you, little friend. If I can break through to become a 5-star blacksmith in the future, I will definitely not forget your kindness today, Gong Sunyu said solemnly. His words caused the expressions of the surrounding people to change. Zhou Tong's face turned serious. With Gong Sunyu's status, giving such a promise carried a lot of weight. Haha, little friend Yi. Why don't we hold your marriage with Xiaoyu today? Gong Sun Xianlong said with a laugh. As a son-in-law, Yi Guqin was much better than Shinta Miao. In terms of talent and strength, Shinta Miao were far inferior. In terms of status and background, how could the Shinta family compare to the sword sex Talon? In addition to Yi Guqin's talent in forging, he also had that precious master's handwritten letter. He was truly the ideal candidate for a son-in-law. In addition, Gongsun Xiaoyu seemed to like him, so Gongsun Xianlong naturally wanted to pair them up. These words caused the bodies of the surrounding Shinta family members to tremble in humiliation. Shintajan's face was blood red, but he could not use any forceful methods. This made Shintajan so angry that he was about to suffer internal injuries. Clan head Gongsun, you must be joking. I have no such intentions, Yi Guqin said calmly. Gongsun Xiaoya pouted and reluctantly let go of Yi Guqin, but it seemed that she hadn't given up yet. At this moment, a faint voice rang out. The voice was slightly piercing. Brother Yi, you're actually thinking for the Gongsun family. Don't forget that he's still poisoned by the blood barbarian tribe's demonic blood poison. The person who spoke was naturally Zhou Tong. Now that Yi Guqin was already very difficult to deal with, he didn't want Yi Guqin to have too close a relationship with the Gongsun family. So he spoke up. Yi Guqin's eyes turned cold. Zhou Tong's repeated provocations had already made him extremely displeased. Even if Yi Guqin was indeed poisoned by the demonic blood poison, there was no need for him to point it out. Gongsun Xianlong raised his eyebrows. It seemed that this 3 imperial palaces genius had some friction with Yi Guqin. However, this was a grudge between the two factions, so Gongsun Xianlong tactfully kept his mouth shut. Alright, today's matter is over. Everyone has seen enough of the show. Let's disperse, Yi Guqin said calmly. He only needed to bring the Xiao family members out. Subsequently, Gongsun Yu and Gongsun Xianlong invited Yi Guqin to the Gongsun family for a small gathering, but were politely declined by Yi Guqin. Gongsun Xiaoya was even more unwilling to give up. It seemed like she was completely entangled with Yi Guqin. Yi Guqin pursued the way of the sword wholeheartedly, so he naturally wouldn't be distracted by love. He had no intention of getting married at all. After that, Yi Guqin, the Xiao family members, the Gongsun family, and many other guests left. Only the messy hall and the miserable Shinta family members were left behind. Yi Guqin, my Shinta family will never let you off. Shintajan's eyes were blood red as he roared with incomparable resentment. What was originally the most festive and lively wedding day of the Shinto family had ended in such a ridiculous and dramatic manner, causing many to sigh. Clearly, this matter didn't take long to spread throughout northern Liang City. It was likely that the Shinto family's reputation would be greatly affected for a long period of time. They might even become the laughingstock of the entire Saint Origin Empire. This was the first time a superfamily had suffered such humiliation. However, what everyone paid more attention to was the mysterious forging genius. His true identity was actually the sword master. This similarly caused everyone to be shocked. Yi Guchen's original legendary deeds had been added with a thick stroke of ink and color. After all, it was extremely rare for a genius to cultivate both martial arts and forging. After leaving the Shinto family, Yi Guchen walked in front alone, while the Xiao family trio followed behind him. As for Madame Xiao, she was even more submissive. She lowered her head, not daring to raise it. Yi Guchen stopped in his tracks and turned to look at Xiao Lai. Brother Xiao, to prevent the Shinto family from dealing with you, I will let you join the Gongsun family in the future. Really? Thank you, little brother Yi. Hearing this, Xiao Lai's eyes were filled with gratitude as he cupped his fists. What he was most worried about was that the Shinto family would settle scores with them in the future. After all, the Shinto family couldn't do anything to Yi Guchen and the Gongsun family, but they could easily wipe out the Xiao family trio. This is the token of the Sword Sect Pagoda Forest. This item can be considered as a layer of protection. Yi Guchen took out a jade token of the Sword Sect Pagoda Forest and handed it to Xiao Lai. Little brother Yi, we are not worthy of this. Xiao Lai lowered his head in shame. Thinking of their attitude towards Yi Guchen, Xiao Lai felt guilty. Xiao Wanru bit her lips. Even now, the bitterness and regret in her heart had not dissipated. As for the absent-minded Madame Xiao, she knelt down with a plop and said humbly, Sword Master Yi, please spare this old woman's life. My mouth was cheap and I had eyes but failed to recognize Mount Tai. It was an insult to Sword Master Yi. As Madame Xiao said this, she kowtowed. If it wasn't for her prejudice, if it wasn't for her harsh attitude, perhaps Yi Guchen's relationship with them would be good, and he might even have some sort of fate with Xiao Wanru. However, because of Madame Xiao's narrow-mindedness, all of this had turned into bubbles. Yi Guchen did not pity her, nor did he express anything. He turned around and was about to leave. Lord Yi, I'm sorry. Xiao Wanru suppressed her sobs. Her eyes were red as she tried her best not to let her tears fall. It's all right. Life is vast, and it is difficult to maintain one's original heart. Take care in the future. Yi Guchen sighed slowly as his figure gradually faded away. Hearing this, Xiao Wanru finally could not stop her tears from falling. She collapsed on the ground and cried heartbreakingly. Originally, there might have been a better ending between them. However, now they were just passers-by. Xiao Wanru regretted her actions, but no matter how much regret she had, it could not change the facts. Chapter 477. After settling the matter with the Shinto family, Yi Guchen returned to the inn in the Sword Sect's Forest of Pagodas. Although he had helped the Xiao family, he had offended the Shinto family. However, Yi Guchen did not mind. He could not fulfill his promise, just because he was afraid of the Shinto family. Furthermore, the Shinto family was not enough to make him afraid. Next, it's time to settle the matter of the blood-dissolving demonic poison. After that, I will find an opportunity to infiltrate the barbarian race and head to the Five Elements Temple to obtain the sacred medicine. Yi Guchen made arrangements after some thought. He thought that he should quickly inquire about the ancient desolate forbidden zone. After obtaining the Five Elements sacred fruit, Yi Guchen would be able to remove the blood-dissolving demonic poison. However, Yi Guchen only knew a little about the ancient desolate forbidden zone from the dragon girl. He was not very clear about it. In the next few days, Yi Guchen stayed in the inn to recuperate. The matter of Yi Guchen causing trouble with the Shinto family spread like wildfire in northern Liang City. There were even times when Gongsun Xiaoya would come to see Yi Guchen. This made many disciples in the inner courtyard of the Sword Sect's Forest of Pagodas admire him. He could kidnap someone's wife just by making a trip to the Shinto family. Yi Guchen was also helpless about this, so he simply ignored it. Not long after, Feng Manlu returned, accompanied by a huge matter that shocked the entire northern Liang city. The Blood Barbarian tribe was completely wiped out. Feng Manlu's trip was just as he had said, a casual stroll. However, the place he visited was the Blood Barbarian tribe's base, the Heaven Blood Demonic Castle. News spread that the Heaven Blood Demonic Castle was lifeless, and no one in the tribe survived. And all of this was done by Feng Manlu alone. The former Sword King had been silent for 10 years. At the exchange, he had severed Xian Tai's arm with a stunning sword. Now he had barged into the Blood Barbarian tribe's base alone, and wiped out the entire tribe. This news was like a clap of thunder, causing the 7 major factions and the barbarians to tremble. Many people guessed that Feng Manlu's actions were to avenge Yi Guchen. Although Feng Manlu was benevolent, the fact that the Blood Barbarians had sent experts to attack Yi Guchen was tantamount to crossing his bottom line. In addition, the Blood Barbarian tribe was known for their extreme brutality. Even among the barbarian tribe, they were considered extreme. Feng Manlu had no reason to blame himself for killing them. This was because every Blood Barbarian was stained with countless souls and blood. This was a move to eliminate evil. When Yi Guchen heard this news, he couldn't help but sigh. He rarely admired anyone. However, Feng Manlu was indeed a sword cultivator worthy of respect. He possessed many excellent qualities of a swordsman. The sword sect Pagoda had been in seclusion for 10 years. He was soft-hearted and rarely used lethal moves, unless the enemy deserved to die. This was a benevolent heart. Facing a divine dwelling expert, Xian Tai, he was neither servile nor overbearing. His sword was stunning, and this was his pride. He had charged into the Blood Barbarian tribe's territory alone without any fear. This was boldness. Tenacity, benevolence, pride, and boldness. With the 4 of them combined into one, the title of Feng Manlu's Sword King was not just for show. At the same time, the news that Yi Guchen had killed the 10 saints of the Blood Barbarian tribe had also spread to the barbarian tribe. This set off a great storm among the barbarian tribe. Many barbarian saints and saintesses didn't expect that the sword sect master, who was rumored to be dead, was still alive and had become so powerful that he could kill 10 saints in a row. However, there were also many barbarian saints who despised Yi Guchen. They thought that he had been poisoned by the blood-dissolving demon poison, and would die soon. Of course, there were also barbarian saints who said that if they met Yi Guchen, they would definitely kill him. For example, the Thunder Tribe Saint Lei Jioming, the Gold Tribe Triple Crown King, the Gold Sun Saint, the new Saintess of the Water Tribe, Kueishui Inji, and so on. Previously, Yi Guchen had killed the 10 saints in a row. Later, Feng Manlu had single-handedly wiped out the Blood Barbarian tribe. This act was like a fuse that completely ignited the war between the 7 forces and the barbarian tribe. After that, the war was no longer limited to the heavens prides of the 7 forces and the barbarian tribe's saints and saintesses. Even the life and death threshold, heaven and earth spiritual bridge, and divine dwelling experts began to take action. The entire great desolate mansion suddenly became a cruel Azura battlefield. Every day, there would be news of the deaths of barbarian tribe experts, as well as the deaths of higher-ups of the 7 forces. This fierce battle lasted for more than a month. During this month, Yi Guchen also took action and killed some barbarian saints. The name Sword Sect Master spread even more widely among the barbarian tribe. Almost all the barbarian saints and saintesses knew of Yi Guchen's name. Of course, in addition to Yi Guchen, the young war emperor, Xian Hao Lv Qinghan, and the others were also very famous among the barbarian tribe. They had killed many saints. In addition, there were some who were not famous but had killed many saints in the barbarian tribe. For example, there was a rumor that a black-clothed young man had killed 3 barbarian saints with a single move. He had a pair of pitch-black eagle wings on his back. There were also people who saw a ragged young man holding a rusty ancient sword and killing saints as if they were dogs. The battle lasted for about a month and a half. The 7 forces and the barbarian tribe chose to temporarily stop fighting. No one knew the reason. A few days later, Yi Guchen received a notice from Elder Qing that the people of the 7 forces were to gather at the arena. Not long after, the higher-ups of the seven forces, including the elders and disciples, gathered at the arena. At this moment, the people of the seven forces were sizing each other up. After the baptism of war, many of the geniuses of the various forces had improved, but many of them had also died. Even the inner courtyard of Sword Sect Pagoda Forest had lost a few people. This was inevitable. Even if Sword Sect Pagoda Forest's opponents were the most gentle Water Tribe and Wood Tribe, it was impossible for them to come out unscathed. Moreover, under the leadership of Kue Shui Inji, the Water Tribe was no longer as merciful as before. However, the losses of the other forces were more than that of Sword Sect Pagoda Forest. At this moment, an elder walked up to the arena and said loudly, "Everyone, the battle between the seven great forces of power and the Berserker tribe is incredibly intense. Both sides have suffered great losses. That's why the higher-ups of the Berserker tribe came forward and suggested to the higher-ups of the seven great forces that instead of fighting to the death, we should choose a wiser method. And this way is in the ancient Desolation Forbidden Zone." What? Yi Guqin, who was below the arena, was surprised when he heard that. He was about to make a trip to the ancient Desolation Forbidden Zone. But now it seemed that he did not have to go alone. The ancient Desolation Forbidden Zone is an ancient battlefield located at the junction of the Great Desolation Mansion and the Five Elements land. There are many opportunities and dangers in it. The entire battlefield is shrouded by a peerless ominous formation. If one's cultivation base is above the life and death realm, his strength will be suppressed to the life and death realm. Even the life and death realm experts will be suppressed to a certain extent. However, in the ancient Desolation Forbidden Zone, it is said that there is an ancient desolation arena that is used for duels. If one wins a duel in the ancient Desolation Forbidden Zone, he will receive some mysterious gifts, such as some sacred elixirs, and even the will of life and death. When they heard about the will of life and death, the eyes of many geniuses in the entire arena, especially the geniuses with 9 changes of godly soul, were burning with passion and their breathing quickened. As everyone knew, in order to break through to the life and death realm, one needed to comprehend the line between life and death. However, the line between life and death was too dangerous. If one could not overcome it, one would die directly, let alone break through. The will of life and death was an extremely unique opportunity. If one succeeded in refining it, one would be able to comprehend the line between life and death. In other words, one could comprehend the will of life and death and break through the life and death realm without having to experience a life or death crisis. It could be said that the will of life and death was an absolutely priceless treasure for geniuses with 9 changes of godly soul. Chapter 478. As the old man spoke, some of the geniuses with 9 transformation divine soul realm, such as Xian Hao, the young war emperor, and LV Qinghan, focused their gazes and their breathing quickened. These geniuses had been stuck at the peak of the divine soul realm for a long time. The reason why they participated in the battle with the barbarian tribe so diligently was to find an opportunity to break through the life and death threshold. At this moment, the opportunity was right in front of them. Not only them, but some of the geniuses present were also eager to give it a try. "Senior, how will the battle with the barbarian tribe proceed?" a genius asked. The old man said, "It's very simple. In the ancient desolate forbidden zone, both sides can only send divine soul realm geniuses to fight. They will enter the ancient desolate forbidden zone and find the arena to fight. Finally, the geniuses from both sides will be judged. Whichever side can stand on the arena will be the final winner. If that's the case, then this battle won't be too stressful for us," some geniuses said with a smile. If that was the case, they really didn't put it in their eyes. In their eyes, the geniuses of the 7 forces were much stronger than the barbarian tribe Saint Sons. Seeing this, the old man frowned slightly and said, "We can't underestimate our opponents in this battle. There are many wild beasts in the ancient desolate forbidden zone. Just entering the arena is not an easy task. Moreover, the legendary 4-crown king of the barbarian tribe will also appear in this battle." When the old man said this, the geniuses who were chatting with each other and looking relaxed all froze. They were speechless for a moment. If one were to ask who was the most powerful saint son in the barbarian tribe, it would be the invincible Four-Crown King. I heard that the Four-Crown King of the barbarian tribe had fought with a life-and-death threshold expert before. Some geniuses whispered. If that was the case, then the Four-Crown King was invincible since they couldn't send life-and-death threshold experts in this battle. Many geniuses thought. However, at the same time, the gazes of the majority of the people in the entire fighting arena were all directed at Yi Guqin. Yi Guqin looked at the gazes and raised his eyebrows slightly. He wasn't surprised. After all, everyone already knew that he had killed the life-and-death threshold. Hee, what's there to fear, for Crown King? You've merely exchanged blows with the life-and-death chamber. Our 7 major powers have a sword sect existence that can truly slay the life-and-death chamber. Zhou Tong took a step forward and said with a faint smile. Yi Guqin raised his eyebrows slightly. This Zhou Tong seemed to be praising him, but he was actually flattering him to death. Wasn't this telling everyone that if the Quadruple Crown King were to appear at that time, then the sword sect would have to deal with him? As for the Quadruple Crown King, not many people knew his true strength. Doing so would undoubtedly put Yi Guqin in great danger. This Zhou Tong really spared no effort in trapping him. However, his words did have a response. Many sky prides heaved a sigh of relief. Although the Quadruple Crown King was powerful, Yi Guqin gave them a sense of security. Even the old man faintly smiled as he nodded towards Yi Guqin. That's right. The Quadruple Crown King is indeed powerful, but the sword sect is no weakling either. Yi Guqin, I hope that you will be able to contribute greatly to the 7 major powers in the ancient desolate forbidden zone. The light in Yi Guqin's eyes dimmed as he faintly nodded without saying anything. Who knew what would happen in the future? Soon after, the old man spoke again. If we win this duel, the barbarian race will withdraw from the great desolate mansion and return to the 5 elements land. They will also promise not to attack our empire for 10 years. If the barbarian race wins, the entire great desolate mansion will belong to them. If the barbarian race obtains the great desolate mansion, there will be endless trouble in the future. After the old man analyzed the pros and cons, the gazes of the sky prides turned solemn. This duel was indeed very important. The old man then went on to explain some more details. Yi Guqin's brows were furrowed the entire time. The trip to the ancient desolate forbidden zone was much more dangerous than he had imagined. The danger did not only come from the barbarian race, but also from the 7 major powers. He believed that Zhou Tong and the rest would definitely not let go of such a good place like the ancient desolate forbidden zone. It would be easy for a few people to die in there. However, Yi Guqin was not afraid. After experiencing so many hardships, his heart was already firm and unwavering. After the battle in the arena ended, the 7 major powers returned to their respective encampments to prepare for the trip to the ancient desolate forbidden zone. The time was set to be 5 days later. The sky prides of the 7 major powers made use of the time to adjust themselves to their best condition. After a day, the dragon lady came to Yi Guqin. I want to enter the ancient desolate forbidden zone with you. The dragon lady went straight to the point. Yi Guqin faintly nodded. He naturally knew that the dragon lady wanted to use this opportunity to contact the water tribe and return to her tribe. At the same time, I hope that you can help me with something. The dragon lady gritted her teeth and said hesitantly. What's the matter? Yi Guqin asked. Help me deal with Kuei Shui Inji. Not only is she powerful, but she has also roped in many saints and saintesses of my tribe. It's not easy for me to deal with her alone. The dragon lady's watery eyes flashed. Although her relationship with Yi Guqin was not bad, it was not particularly good. Hence, the dragon lady was not confident in asking for such a favor. Sure. Yi Guqin faintly nodded without hesitation. That's all. Is there nothing else to ask? The dragon lady was slightly surprised. Yi Guqin's answer was too straightforward. Aren't we friends? Yi Guqin chuckled, not minding it at all. The dragon lady stared deeply at Yi Guqin and suddenly smiled. I finally understand why you are so popular with women. Yi Guqin paused. Really? He only thought that if he could infiltrate the barbarian tribe in the future, he could get the dragon lady's help. Don't worry. If you have any problems in the future, you can look for me. At the same time, I promise that if I regain my position, the water tribe will not participate in the war. The dragon lady said solemnly. Yiguchen nodded. In the next few days, Yiguchen was adjusting his breath and suppressing the blood-dissolving demonic poison in his body. The news of the battle between the barbarian tribe and the 7 superpowers in the ancient Desolation Forbidden Zone had spread throughout the Great Desolation Mansion. In a certain place in the Great Desolation Mansion, a black-robed young man stood straight like a spear. He looked into the distance and was deep in thought. Ancient Desolation Forbidden Zone. I wonder if there are any healing panaceas in there? The black-robed young man pondered inside. I didn't expect that Yiguchen would still be alive. It's indeed unexpected. He even killed a life and death chamber expert. However, I still have to see it with my own eyes. After the black-robed young man muttered to himself, Zhenqi surged behind his back and a pair of black eagle wings spread out. He flapped his wings and flew into the sky. This young man was Su Moyan. At the same time, in another city of the Great Desolation Mansion, a massacre was going on. A golden-robed young man was strolling around the city in boredom. The ground was littered with corpses. This young man was a saint of the Jin tribe. How boring. This city has been massacred. It's about time to head to the ancient Desolation Forbidden Zone. The golden-robed young man smiled. At this moment, he suddenly saw a figure squatting on the side of the street in front of him. He did not know what the figure was doing. Oh, there's a fish that escaped the net? The golden-robed young man raised his eyebrows and approached the figure. He found that it was a sloppy young man with unkempt hair and a dirty face. He frowned when he saw the unpleasant smell coming from his body. So it's a beggar. The golden-robed young man shook his head. The young man kept mumbling as if he was counting something. 16, 17, 18, 19. What's this beggar doing? The golden-robed young man approached again and took a closer look. However, his eyes froze in an instant. The thing that the young man was counting was none other than the holy sun badges one after another. How is this possible? The golden-robed young man was shocked. At this moment, the sloppy young man suddenly turned around. His body was extremely dirty, but his eyes were as sharp as the cold stars in the sky. Whoosh! A rusty ancient saber appeared in the sloppy young man's hand. He swung the saber as fast as lightning. Poochie! Blood spurted out, and the golden-robed young man's head was separated from his body. The sloppy young man slowly walked forward and searched the golden-robed young man's body. He found a saint token. 20. The sloppy young man mumbled, but he did not feel happy at all. I've only comprehended 70% of the peerless saber. It's not enough. I need to find someone to verify my saber Dao. Where should I go? Yes, the ancient Desolation Forbidden Zone. The sloppy young man mumbled as he looked in the direction of the ancient Desolation Forbidden Zone. This sloppy young man was the saber maniac, Gu Zun. Chapter 479. 5 days passed in the blink of an eye. 5 days later, the 7 major forces of northern Liang City were preparing to set off for the ancient desolate Forbidden Zone. The group from the Sword Sect Tower was also preparing to leave the city under Feng Manla's lead. Beside Yi Guchen, the dragon lady wore a hood and followed beside him. Because Yi Guchen had an extraordinary status in the Sword Sect Tower, not many people asked too much. However, the dragon girl's stunning beauty still attracted the attention of many inner court disciples. At the back of the crowd, Bai Zichen's eyes flickered as a cold smile appeared on his face. Yi Guchen, this is? Yan Wushuang pretended to ask casually. Just a servant girl. Yi Guchen said casually. Servant girl? Chu Qingqi Yixia, and the others were puzzled. Yi Guchen wasn't fond of women, and wasn't greedy for pleasure. Since when did he have such a beautiful servant girl? However, they didn't care too much and looked at Yan Wushuang with playful gazes. Yan Wushuang seemed to care about the beautiful servant girl beside Yi Guchen. What are you looking at me for? Yan Wushuang's beautiful eyes dodged slightly as she shouted. Why do I feel that senior sister Yan has become more and more feminine after the exchange? Yixia shook his head. I think so too. Chu Qingqi nodded in agreement. Are you guys itching for a beating? Yen Wushuang raised her hand as she bit her red lips, and said with a faint blush on her face, Shuang, I didn't think that while I was unconscious, you would be conquered by junior brother Yi so quickly. At the side, Ji Ling, who had recovered from her heavy injuries, pouted her red lips. Her tone carried a trace of jealousy as she spoke with hidden bitterness. Even you. Yen Wushuang gritted her teeth and felt extremely embarrassed. However, the harmonious atmosphere between the inner court disciples was much better than before. Of course, Yi Guchen had set a good example for them. Yi Guchen smiled faintly as he watched the inner court disciples joke around. This kind of relationship between senior and junior brothers and sisters seemed to be quite comfortable. The only thing that was a little irksome was, Yi Guchen narrowed his eyes and looked at Bai Zichen at the back. Bai Zichen averted his gaze and glanced to the side. Bai Zichen, I hope you know what's good for you. If you try anything funny in the ancient desolate forbidden zone, don't blame me for disregarding our relationship as fellow disciples. Yi Guchen's eyes were cold. The 7 great forces left northern Liang City under the lead of their respective divine dwelling experts. After a few days, they were finally close to the ancient desolate forbidden zone. Yi Guchen looked into the distance. He saw that the horizon in the distance had changed from a sky of yellow sand to a pitch-black land. Within it, there were mountain ranges and ancient forests. The pitch-black mountain ridge was like the skeleton of a giant beast, bringing with it a savage aura. Is that the forbidden zone of the ancient desolate? Yi Guchen thought to himself. He had been to many dangerous places such as the endless plains, the bottomless demon abyss, the void sword realm, and so on. He was also a little interested in the ancient desolate forbidden zone. In addition to the 5 elements sacred fruit, Yi Guchen was also a little curious about the life and death will. In addition, according to the dragon girl, there were many altars in the ancient desolate forbidden zone. In different altars, one could even obtain some 5 elements sacred items, which would be of great help to Yi Guchen's 5-colored golden core. Maybe I can awaken the ancestral totem in the ancient desolate forbidden zone. Yi Guchen thought to himself. Not long after, everyone was close to the ancient desolate forbidden zone, feeling the savage and fierce atmosphere. Some of the originally confident geniuses could not help but change their expressions slightly, and their hearts beat like a drum. Is the barbarian tribe not here yet? A genius asked. The barbarian tribe is different from us. We enter from the east, while the barbarian tribe enters from the west. Anyway, we will meet in the end and gather in the ancient desolate forbidden zone, someone explained. In that case, everyone enter. However, I have to warn you in advance that there are many dangers in the ancient desolate forbidden zone. Not only will you fight with the barbarian tribe, you will also encounter some wild beasts. Those wild beasts are more ferocious than ordinary demonic beasts, an old senior warned. The geniuses present felt their hearts heavy. Let's go, Yi Guchen said calmly. Shortly after, the group from the Sword Sect's Tower Forest walked in. The geniuses from the other forces also entered. 100 miles away, in another direction of the ancient desolate forbidden zone, there was a group of people standing. Among them, there were 4 black-clothed masked men. Their eyes were filled with deep-seated hatred, and standing in front of them was a figure. It was Shin Tizhan. In the ancient desolate forbidden zone, there is a peerless array. Even if a spiritual bridge of heaven and earth expert enters, it will be useless. This time, I will have to trouble you 4 elders. For the revenge of our Shinta family, you must kill Yi Guchen. Shin Tizhan gritted his teeth, and his eyes were filled with hatred. That's natural. Yi Guchen has ruined my Shinta family's plans. The few of us will definitely kill him. The 4 masked men were the elders of the Shinta family. At this moment, they were determined to kill Yi Guchen. Although the array in the ancient desolate forbidden zone could suppress the strength of the life and death chamber, it would not completely suppress it. With the strength of 4 life and death chamber experts, how could they not kill a divine soul realm expert? Okay, then let's set off. Be careful to find the right opportunity to strike. Do not let others know, or it will be the end of our Shinta family. Shin Tizhan warned. Back when Yi Guchen was ambushed by the blood barbarian tribe experts, Feng Manlu had wiped out the entire blood barbarian tribe. If the news of the Shinta family taking action was leaked, then the Shinta family would have to bear the wrath of the Sword King. Furthermore, they were entering the ancient desolate forbidden zone to gamble with the barbarian tribe. If the Shinta family took action to kill Yi Guqin, it would undoubtedly be a great offense. If the news were to spread, not only the Sword Sect and Talon Forest, even the 7 major factions and the entire dynasty would not tolerate the existence of the Shinta family. In order to vent his anger, Shinta-Zhan had gambled the entire Shinta family. Seeing the 4 masked elders leave, Shinta-Zhan's expression was as ferocious as a demon. Yi Guqin, this is the price you have to pay for provoking my Shinta family. This time, even if you don't die, you will die. At the same time, in another direction, Gu Zun, who was dressed in rags and emitting a sour smell, slowly walked into the ancient desolate forbidden zone with the 7 kills ancient saber in his hand. Who can achieve my peerless saber strike? Xianhao, the young war emperor, the barbarian tribe's Lei Juyo, the Golden Sun Saint, the 4 Crown King, or that sword sect? When the sword sect was mentioned, Gu Zun's star-like eyes flashed with a cold light. He had naturally received news of Yi Guqin, including the news of him becoming the successor of Feng Manlu. Gu Zun knew that he would fight with Yi Guqin at the peak of the Forbidden Zone in the future. However, Gu Zun did not care. He only cared about who could achieve his peerless saber strike. At the same time, on the other side, Su Moyan had also entered the ancient desolate Forbidden Zone. On one hand, he wanted to find the sacred herb, and on the other hand, he wanted to confirm Yi Guqin's cultivation level. And on the west side of the ancient desolate Forbidden Zone, many saints and saintesses from the barbarian tribe camp were ready. Chapter 480. The barbarian race camp had many saints and saintesses, as well as the totem warriors. They all exuded a fierce and savage aura. The gold, wood, water, fire, earth and other 5 elements barbarian races were all present. In addition to the 5 elements barbarian race, there were also the Wind Clan, the Thunder Clan and other large clans. These large barbarian race tribes all had divine dwelling experts, and their strength was in no way weaker than the 7 great forces. In addition, there were some second-tier tribes such as the Bone Barbarian race, the Soul Barbarian race, and the Beast Barbarian race. They had Heaven and Earth Spirit Bridge experts, and their strength was roughly equivalent to the super families. As for the Blood Barbarian race, it was originally one of them, but it was destroyed by Feng Manlu alone. At this moment, many barbarian race tribes were gathered together. Many saints and saintesses exuded a murderous aura. It was obvious that they were going to launch the most ruthless slaughter in the ancient desolate forbidden zone. Finally, we can really fight with the bastards of the 7 great forces. A Heaven Pride clad in golden armor, and holding a golden spear laughed from the Gold Clan camp. He was a strong saint of the Gold Clan, named Jin Zhanlia. I think this battle will be very boring. At the back, a handsome man in a golden robe casually said in a lazy tone, TSK, with your strength Golden Sun Saint Sun, you can say that. But don't forget that this time, the 7 major forces have produced a sword master, who can kill a life and death threshold expert. On the other side, in the camp of the water race, a woman with a green snake tattoo on her face said with a smile. Her appearance was coquettish, and there was a kind of charm to her. The green snake tattoo not only didn't destroy her charm, but also added a bit of wild temptation to her. She was the new saintess of the Water Clan, Kuei Shui Inji. The reason she said that was to target Yi Guqin. After all, it was Kuei Shui Inji who secretly arranged for the Blood Barbarian race saintess to kill the dragon girl. In the end, because of Yi Guqin, they didn't succeed and left a hidden danger. Therefore, Kuei Shui Inji naturally hated Yi Guqin to the core. So what if he killed the life and death threshold? He better pray that he doesn't meet me in the forbidden zone of the desolate ancient forbidden zone. A blue-haired figure from the Thunder Clan camp snorted coldly. He was the peerless saint of the Thunder Clan, Lei Juyo. He possessed the bloodline of the Thunder God, and had dual mutated thunders. His strength was definitely not weaker than the Triple Crown King. Behind him stood a young man who looked very similar to him. He was his younger brother, Lei Jioming, who was also quite powerful. Lei Juyo, anyone can boast. How about we compete and see who will be able to kill the sword sect in the end? A handsome male walked out from the Fire Clan. His hair was fiery red, but his eyes were green. He looked extremely strange. His tone was indifferent, as if killing Yi Guqin was as easy as lifting a finger. Yan Xuanji, let's wait and see, Lei Juyo said coldly. Yan Xuanji smiled. As the double crown king of the fire tribe, his strength was also second to none. That four-crown king still hasn't arrived? A man from the Wind Clan with an impressive temperament asked. He was the Wind Clan's triple crown king, and his name was Feng Xiaotian. You guys go in first. For Crown King won't go with you, but he will enter, said a barbarian race expert. Many saints and saintesses entered the desolate ancient forbidden area. The 7 major forces and the barbarian race saints entered from the east and west respectively. Although they hadn't met yet, a murderous aura had already shrouded the entire desolate ancient forbidden area. The desolate ancient forbidden area, the ancient wilderness. It was rumored that this place was an ancient battlefield, and the ground was shrouded by a peerless array. Even if a divine dwelling expert entered, their strength would be suppressed to the life and death chamber. Even the life and death chamber experts wouldn't be able to display their full strength, and they would only be slightly stronger than a divine spirit expert. It was also because of this that very few experts came to this place to seek opportunities, because they might die if they weren't careful. It was too disadvantageous for experts like them. If a divine spirit expert entered, they would also be in great danger. There were many desolate beasts running amok, and they were stronger than demonic beasts of the same level. In addition, there were various dangerous places. Of course, there were also many opportunities. In the desolate ancient forbidden area, there were many altars, most of which had 5 elements divine objects, but there would also be extremely powerful desolate beasts guarding them. In addition, there was also the desolate ancient battle arena. In the east of the desolate ancient forbidden area, Yi Guqin and the others also entered. Feeling the wild and primitive land, Yi Guqin's expression grew solemn. There was indeed a suppressive array aura here, but it didn't have much of an effect on a divine spirit expert like him. Let's split up here, Yi Guqin suddenly said. You're not going with us? Yan Wushuang, Chu Qingqi and the others were all surprised. In fact, my opponents are not only the barbarian race. It's not convenient for me to follow a large group. Yi Guqin smiled casually, sweeping his gaze across the other forces. Zhou Tong, Black and White Impermanence, Ren Tingting, Empress Yuanxi, Demonic Blade Lungju, and the others were all looking at Yi Guqin. I don't believe that they would attack someone from the same side in such a big matter, Yan Wushuang said. It's hard to know what's in a person's heart. Yi Guqin had already seen through human nature. In that case, leave a communication jade slip so that we can contact each other, Chu Qingqi said. After leaving the jade slip, Yi Guqin left with the dragon girl. At the same time, Bai Zichen, who was at the back of the Sword Sex Pagoda forest, also quietly followed behind Yi Guqin. On the other side, Yi Guqin and the dragon girl left to act in the desolate ancient forbidden area. Shall we deal with Kuei Shui Inji first? Yi Guqin asked. There's no hurry. I haven't sensed her yet. She should still be some distance away. Let's go find the altars first. There are many altars in the desolate ancient forbidden area, all of which have 5 elements divine objects, the dragon girl said. Yi Guqin nodded slightly. Not long after, they found an altar in a kernel. Around the altar, there was a river with a thick water elemental aura. And on the altar, there was a divine object that looked like a heart. It was rippling with water as it emitted a watery luster. It's a water elemental divine object, the heart of the sea. The dragon girl's breathing quickened. Yi Guqin looked over. The heart of the sea was probably a divine object on the same level as the azurewood heart. However, in the river outside the altar, there seemed to be a shadow flashing under the water. Be careful, said Yi Guqin. The dragon girl nodded as the two slowly approached. At that moment, a gigantic anaconda in the river suddenly raised its head. Its scales were like cold jade as they shimmered with a cold light. Be careful, it's a desolate beast. The dragon girl's expression changed slightly. Yi Guqin also sensed it. Although the anaconda was only a rank 4 Fey, comparable to the divine soul realm. Its aura was much stronger than ordinary rank 4 Fae. Hiss. The anaconda was a desolate beast that guarded the altar. Its snake eyes were sharp as it charged straight at Yi Guqian and the dragon girl. Yi Guqian drew his Xianming heavy sword as his divine power surged as he slashed at the anaconda. Chapter 481. Boom. The Xianming heavy sword had the power of 1,000 catties. In addition to Yi Guqian's perfect physical body, the power of the sword was like Mount Tai. As the sword slashed down, even the air seemed to be compressed, emitting a whistling sound. Bang. A violent collision broke out. Yi Guqian's eyes were slightly surprised. The body of the anaconda was unexpectedly sturdy. He only felt a strong rebounding force spread from the Xianming heavy sword to his arm. However, the anaconda was also forced back. However, Yi Guqian's eyes were more serious. With his current strength, he could almost defeat anyone in the divine soul realm. In Yi Guqian's opinion, even if it was a rank 4 demonic beast that was equivalent to the divine soul realm, it shouldn't be a big problem. However, the anaconda's strength was much stronger than an ordinary rank 4 demonic beast. Is it because of its existence in the forbidden zone of ancient desolation? Yi Guqian thought to himself. Be careful. On the other side, the dragon lady shouted. At the same time, the totem power in her body surged. She blasted out her jade-like hand. Majestic water vapor gathered into a torrent and blasted towards the anaconda. Yi Guqian knew that the anaconda's scales had amazing defensive power. His eyes flashed slightly and he changed his sword technique again. A vague sword essence came out from Yi Guqian's body. Yi Guqian had almost comprehended 80% of the edgeless sword essence. He only needed an opportunity to fully comprehend it. However, even if he hadn't fully comprehended it, the sword essence that was faintly emitted at this moment made Yi Guqian's sword move even more powerful. Yi Guqian's sword resonated with the void and vibrated. The Great Void Sword Wave was directly displayed. This time, Yi Guqian's Great Void Sword Wave was even more powerful than before. Streaks of transparent sword wave seemed to cause the void to boil. After a period of comprehension and cultivation, Yi Guqian's Supreme King level sword technique had been cultivated to a higher level. He could display 50% of its power. The 50% power far exceeded the Void Sword technique's 10,000-fold wave. Boom! The anaconda hissed as it was attacked by the sword wave. The sword wave directly pierced through its tough and flexible scales and struck its soft internal organs. The anaconda immediately wilted. Yi Guqian and Dragoness saw this and took the opportunity to kill the anaconda. Looking at the dead anaconda, Yi Guqian said, "The desolate beasts of this forbidden zone are indeed stronger than ordinary demonic beasts." Yes, but the harvest here is incomparable to the outside world. Dragon Lady's beautiful face revealed a hint of joy. She walked up the altar and took the heart of the sea. Yi Guqian had no intention of fighting for it. "For you." Dragon Lady directly split the heart of the sea into two and handed one half to Yi Guqian. Although it's a bit abrupt, I can feel that you have a very powerful water-type totem. Its level is at least of the supreme totem level. Dragon Lady's crystal eyes were bright as she stared at Yi Guqian. She could not believe that Yi Guqian had a progenitor totem. This was because the progenitor totem was almost extinct even among the barbarians. Even the quadruple crown king, who had dominated the world, only had 4 supreme totems. Compared to the progenitor totem, there was still a gap. So you want to go to the barbarians and expose me? I seem to remember that the barbarians' rules do not allow anyone other than the barbarians to have a supreme totem. Yi Guqian looked deeply at Dragon Lady. Dragon Lady only guessed that he had a water-type supreme totem. However, Yi Guqian's true secret far exceeded Dragon Lady's guess. Not only did he have a progenitor totem, but a total of 5 progenitor totems. He was afraid that Dragon Lady could not accept it. What kind of person do you think I am? You have helped me so much. Do you think I will bite the hand that feeds me? I just feel that your totem can help my totem evolve. Dragon Lady said angrily. Although she was shocked that Yi Guqian had a supreme totem, they had been together for so long and were considered friends. Dragon Lady would not do such a thing. Okay, then how can I help you evolve your totem? Yiguchen asked. No rush. Your totem has not awakened yet, right? Wait until your totem is truly awakened, then you can help me. So, I will do my best to help you awaken your totem, Dragon Lady replied. Yiguchen nodded. He was actually a bit confused and did not know how to awaken his totem. With Dragon Lady's guidance, it was much more convenient. First, to awaken your totem, you must first complete the totem's power. In other words, you need more power to completely condense the totem, Dragon Lady said. After that, Yiguchen and Dragon Lady searched for altars in the forbidden zone of ancient desolation. And the heavens did not disappoint those who worked hard. Yiguchen and the rest found a few altars. After refining many water elemental divine items, Yiguchen also felt that the power of the tongue snake totem was boiling. It was just one step away from complete completion. At this moment, Dragon Lady suddenly looked surprised and said, I sensed the location of a water elemental altar. The water elemental totem power is stronger than the altars we found before. Dragon Lady was a water saintess. She had a special secret skill that could sense water elemental power. Then let's go, Yiguchen said. He was curious about what kind of changes would happen to him after awakening the tongue snake totem. But Dragoness had a serious look in her eyes. What's wrong? Yiguchen asked. Koeshui Inji is there too. Also, it seems like there are a few saints and saintesses from my tribe, Dragon Lady said hesitantly. It's okay. Let's go and take a look. Yiguchen did not hesitate. Long Nu clenched her teeth when she saw Yiguchen's indifferent expression. Immediately, she led Yiguchen and rushed in a certain direction. Not long after they left, Baizichen suddenly appeared. He had a cold smile on his face and took out a communication jade slip. Chapter 482. Just as Baizichen took out his communication jade slip. On the other side, Zhou Tong, who was far away from the seven forces, also received the news. Oh, I didn't expect the maid beside him to be the Water Tribe's Dragon Lady. But looking at the situation, the Dragon Lady should have some conflict with the Water Tribe's Koeshui Inji. If that's the case. Zhou Tong's eyes revealed a hint of deep meaning. He thought for a while and took out a few more communication jade slips with a cold smile on his face. I think Yiguchen is helping the Dragon Lady to deal with the Water Tribe's Koeshui Inji. If that's the case, I will inform those from the Fire Tribe and Thunder Tribe. They should be very interested in Yiguchen's exotic fire and thunder. When the time comes, with the Water Tribe's Koeshui Inji and Yiguchen, will you be able to deal with this siege? Zhou Tong smiled faintly. And if outsiders knew that the geniuses of the seven forces were secretly communicating with the barbarian tribe's saint to deal with people from the same camp, Zhou Tong would definitely be condemned by everyone. But obviously with Zhou Tong's means, he would naturally be able to do it flawlessly. On the other side, Yiguchen was still unaware of Zhou Tong's siege. But he also sensed that someone was following behind him, and it was Baizichen. In addition to the abnormality of Baizichen's leg, Yiguchen was already certain that the person who was monitoring him in Black Rock City that day was Baizichen. As for the person behind him, apart from Zhou Tong, Yiguchen could not think of anyone else. However, he did not act rashly and let Baizichen follow him just like that. He also wanted to know what methods Baizichen and Zhou Tong would use to deal with him. There were many altars in the forbidden zone of ancient desolation, and the level of the divine objects that existed were also different. At this moment, at the edge of a lake, a few figures were fighting with a ferocious wild beast. The wild beast was like a qilin. Its scales were dark blue, and its mouth was constantly spewing out icy blue cold currents. Its strength had almost reached the peak of the divine soul realm. The strength of this water unicorn beast is really strong, a man in blue said. He was a saint of the Water Tribe. The rest of the saints and saintesses nodded in agreement. Only a beautiful woman with a coquettish face and a tattoo of a green snake was watching all of this coldly. It was Kue Watarinji. Seeing that the water unicorn beast was almost exhausted by the saints and saintesses, Ishue Inji made her move. Vast water attribute totem power gathered in her hand, and turned into many illusionary water snakes that charged toward the water unicorn beast. In the end, the water unicorn beast let out a miserable howl and fell to the ground, its vitality dissipating. You are indeed the strongest. The few saint princes and saintesses of the water tribe smiled at Kuei-shui Inji. Among them, there was a woman who was extremely respectful towards Kuei-shui Inji. Her name was Shui Linglong, and she was also a saintess of the water race. However, she had always been overshadowed by the radiance of the Dragon Lady. After Kuei-shui Inji rose to power, Shui Linglong secretly joined her side. The reason why the Dragon Lady was set up by Kuei-shui Inji was mainly because of Shui Linglong's secret messages. Don't worry, the divine item on the altar, the 9 Seas Sacred Pearl, is very powerful. I can't refine it all by myself, but I will give you a share, Kuei-shui Inji said calmly. She knew that she had to treat those who followed her with kindness and authority in order to control them completely. However, when she thought of the few saints and saintesses who were extremely loyal to the Dragon Lady who did not give in, Kuei-shui Inji's heart turned cold. Don't worry, as long as we kill the Dragon Lady, those people will follow you sooner or later, Shui Linglong said with a smile. Kuei-shui Inji nodded slightly. At this moment, a voice filled with disappointment and coldness came from not far away. You are the one who betrayed me, Shui Linglong. After hearing the voice, Shui Linglong's smiling face changed instantly. She looked at the source of the voice. 2 figures appeared slowly. One of them was a slim lady who was wearing a black hood. The Dragon Lady extended her jade-like hand and slowly took off her hood, revealing a head of long blue hair and a delicate face. Dragon Lady, it's you? Shui Linglong's face turned pale. However, when she looked at Kuei-shui Inji and the others, she regained her composure. Shui Linglong, I treated you like a sister. I will give you half of the resources in the tribe. However, you chose to join Kuei-shui Inji. The Dragon Lady was disappointed. Very disappointed. She was still wondering how Kuei-shui Inji found out about her when she was very secretive. Now, it seemed that Shui Linglong was the one who leaked the information. Dragon Lady, you are no longer suitable to be the saintess of the water tribe. Why are you dying in peace? Shui Linglong's eyes were filled with jealousy. She had always been jealous of the Dragon Lady. Until Kuei-shui Inji appeared, she finally had the chance to defeat the Dragon Lady. The Dragon Lady sighed deeply. She glanced at the few people. She found that these people had completely joined Kuei-shui Inji. Since that was the case, there was no need for her to hold back. Kuei-shui Inji's eyes did not linger on the Dragon Lady for long. Instead, she looked at the young man in black robes beside her. This is the rumored sword master Yi Guqin who had killed a life and death chamber expert? It seems like he doesn't have 3 heads and 6 arms. Kuei-shui Inji was very confident in her own strength. Although the news of Yi Guqin killing 10 saint sons and life and death chamber had spread like wildfire in the barbarian tribe, however, most of the saint sons and saintesses of the barbarian tribe did not care about it. The blood barbarian saint son was not the strongest among the barbarian saint sons. However, Kuei-shui Inji's strength was one of the best among the barbarian tribe saintesses. What? He's that Yi Guqin? The other saint sons and saintesses of the water tribe were shocked. Shui Linglong's eyes showed a trace of fear. However, she immediately said, Dragon Lady, you've fallen so low. You're mixing with the people of the 7 factions. Are you betraying the water tribe? Shui Linglong's words put the label of a traitor on Long Nu. Why waste time talking with them? Yi Guqin sighed. In fact, other than Kuei-shui Inji, the Dragon Lady did not want to hurt the other saint sons and saintesses of the same tribe. However, it seemed that Kuei-shui Inji had pulled them to the same side. She even slandered the Dragon Lady and labeled her as a traitor. The Dragon Lady showed a self-deprecating smile. As the saintess of the water tribe, the people of the same tribe saw her as an enemy. However, Yi Guqin, who was on the opposite side, stood firmly by her side. Dragon Lady, since you're here, don't leave. After I get rid of you, I'll control the saint sons and saintesses who are loyal to you. By then, the water tribe will reach the peak under my leadership. Kuei-shui Inji's aura exploded with ambition. Don't even think about it. The dragon lady gritted her teeth. She turned to Yiguchen and said, "Please." Yiguchen nodded. He was asked to do what he was asked to do. Is the sword sect your backing? Very well. Let me have a try. Kuei Shui Inji sneered and attacked. Yiguchen's eyes flashed and he drew his sword. A powerful aura spread out in all directions with a loud bang, intimidating all directions. Chapter 483. Feeling Yiguchen's surging aura, Kuei Shui Inji's expression changed slightly. Yiguchen had not used the secret skill of soul devouring, so his aura was only at the 6th transformation. However, the intensity of his aura was comparable to Kuei Shui Inji's at the 9th transformation. Moreover, the golden genuine qi released by Yiguchen's Sea of Qi was far more powerful than ordinary genuine qi. Therefore, Yiguchen's aura was not weak at all. Boom. Without any words, a chaotic battle broke out. Kuei Shui Inji activated the totem power in her body. She waved her hand and the water element totem power condensed into water snakes. They tore at Yiguchen. Each of the water snakes could easily tear an ordinary divine soul realm expert in half. The saintess of a top tribe was indeed incomparable to the saintess of a second-rate tribe. Yiguchen's eyes narrowed. The golden true qi in his body surged and infused into the Xianming heavy sword. Countless sword lights crisscross with each other, as if forming an impenetrable and sharp net, trapping the water snakes within and directly mincing them into countless splashes. Kuei Shui Inji was surprised to see Yiguchen easily fend off her attack. On the other side, Dragon Lady was fighting with Shui Linglong and the others. Dragon Lady was not weak. She was severely injured before, but now that she had recovered, she was at her peak. Dragon Lady took out the blue serene serpent totem. An illusory serpent appeared and suppressed Shui Linglong and the others. Kuei Shui Inji's heart sank when she saw that. If she did not take care of Yiguchen soon and Dragon Lady was free, she would be in trouble. Demonic Serpent Ring. Kuei Shui Inji took out her dermic rune weapon. It was a circular weapon that looked like a snake biting its tail. There were sharp teeth at the edge. With the help of the totem power, the demonic serpent ring tore through the air and made a sharp sound. Yiguchen's sword aura did not change. As he swung his Xianming heavy sword, it was as if Mount Tai was pressing down on him. Clang! 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 The Xianming heavy sword clashed with the demonic serpent ring. Kuei Shui Inji twisted her waist and moved forward. As she waved her hand, more water snakes shot out. However, these water snakes were different from before. They were green in color and gave out a fishy smell. It's poisonous. Yiguchen raised his eyebrows, but he was not afraid. Inside his body, the heavenly sun Xianming fire burst out. The crimson and dark blue flames burst out, causing Yiguchen to be surrounded by a layer of flames. Because he could control it freely, it did not burn his clothes. Heaven and earth unique flame. Kuei Shui Inji was shocked. Water and fire. Water. She was the holy lady of the water tribe. She had the power of the water tribe and the unique flame of heaven and earth was her nemesis. Although she was wary, the unique flame of heaven and earth was not as deadly to the water tribe as it was to the blood barbarian tribe. Cold poison water. Kuei Shui Inji formed a seal with her hands, and the totem power in her body burst out. Around her, waves of water blocked the attack. Kuei Shui Inji took out a blue water current. The dark blue water flow was like a water dragon. It streaked across the void, bringing with it waves of extreme coldness. Even before it really came into contact with Yiguchen, a layer of frost had already appeared on his skin. Yiguchen raised his eyebrows and the power of the heavenly sun Xianming fire spread out. The cold poison water was a power that was on the same level as the unique flame and unique lightning. As Yiguchen activated the unique flame, the frost on his skin melted instantly. Yiguchen raised his hands and the flames shot out and clashed with the cold poison water. As the water and fire clashed, there was a loud sizzling sound and a thick white mist spread out. Yiguchen's eyes flashed. As the white mist spread out, he took out the unique lightning in his body. The purple lightning nether lightning followed the cold poison water and attacked Kuei Shui Inji. As water could conduct electricity, It increased the speed of the purple lightning nether lightning. When it was about to hit Kuei-shui Inji, she realized it and said in surprise, "Damn it, the unique lightning of heaven and earth." The barbarian tribe only knew some of Yi Guchen's achievements, but they were not clear about his skills. For example, Kuei-shui Inji did not know about the unique flame and unique lightning. In a hurry, Kuei-shui Inji took out a defensive martial art, and a water shield formed in front of her. Even so, the powerful purple lightning nether lightning forced Kuei-shui Inji to retreat a few hundred feet. Kuei-shui Inji spat out blood and felt numb all over. Yi Guchen used the shadow step and left a trail of afterimages. He instantly charged forward and slashed at Kuei-shui Inji's head. Kuei-shui Inji screamed and took out her highest totem. Along with the surging totem power, the shadow of a giant snake with 9 heads appeared. That was Kuei-shui Inji's highest totem, the 9-headed hell snake. The reason why Kuei-shui Inji could become the new saintess, and even be one of the strongest saintesses of the water race, was largely because of her totem. Hell snake roar. Ishui Inji yelled. The 9 heads of the 9-headed hellish snake opened their mouths at the same time. A terrifying sound wave that could shatter mountains spread across the area. The terrifying sound wave even affected Dragon Lady and the others who were fighting not far away. Even the 9-headed hell snake totem has been taken out. How long can Sword Sect last? Shui Linglong sneered. Frogs at the bottom of a well. You know nothing about Yi Guchen's power, Dragon Lady said coldly. Humph, Dragon Lady, you really are a traitor. When Kuei-shui Inji kills Yi Guchen, will you still be able to run away? Shui Linglong said with disdain. She had not seen Yi Guchen's power with her own eyes. Hence, she did not care about the rumors. On the other side, Yi Guchen did not underestimate the power of the terrifying sound waves that were coming at him. His sword vibrated with the void, and he used the Great Void Sword Wave again. The 2 transparent waves clashed with each other, and the shock waves caused the ground around them to crack. Kuei-shui Inji's body was affected and she quickly retreated. Terrifying shock waves invaded her body. If it were not for the 9-headed hell snake totem, her organs would have been shattered. Kuei-shui Inji stared at Yi Guchen. She expected Yi Guchen to be severely injured. After all, the hell snake howl was not only a sound wave attack, but also a soul attack. However, to Kuei-shui Inji's astonishment, Yi Guchen acted as if nothing had happened. He only took a few steps back, and then charged at her again with his sword. How is that possible? Kuei-shui Inji's face turned pale. She could not believe it. Yi Guchen looked calm. With the fallen star demonic soul butterfly as a spiritual guardian, normal soul attacks were useless against Yi Guchen. Now it's my turn. Yi Guchen immediately used the god-slaying sword skill Yama. A tall shadow of the King of Hell rose from the ground behind Yi Guchen. Along with Yi Guchen's sword, it swept out at the same time. Kuei-shui Inji blocked with the 9-headed hell snake totem, but she was still sent flying and spat out blood. On the other side, Shui Linglong and the others' faces turned pale and their lips trembled. It's over. Just as Yi Guchen was about to end Kuei-shui Inji's life, a black lightning bolt shot out. A black thunderbolt suddenly shot toward Yi Guchen. Yi Guchen's eyes flashed, and he retreated. A figure appeared here, surrounded by pitch-black lightning. It's you, Lei Jioming. Dragon Lady's face changed. On the other side, another 2 figures appeared. It was a man and a woman. They were the Saint Yan Xiao and Saintess Huomei, or of the Fire Tribe. Dragoness's heart sank to the bottom. Chapter 484. Dragon Girl did not understand why Lei Jioming, Yan Xiao, and Huomei would come here. However, those who came did not come with good intentions. It was not a coincidence that they came here. Yi Guchen glanced coldly at Lei Jioming and the others. Yi Guchen did not know these barbarian saints and saintesses, but he was not afraid. What surprised him was that Zhou Tong would secretly collude with the barbarians. Yi Guchen did not alert the enemy, and let Bai Zichen follow behind him because he wanted to know what method Zhou Tong would use to deal with him. However, this scene was slightly out of his expectations. It seems that in order to get rid of me, Zhou Tong, you are really unscrupulous. Yi Guchen sighed inwardly. Zhou Tong was good at scheming and had a glib tongue. He had never fought with him head-on, and only used various methods to suppress him. But now Yi Guchen was tired of it. Why would he use scheming when he could solve things with strength? When this matter was over, Yi Guchen would settle the score with Zhou Tong. However, he still had to deal with the matter at hand. Yi Guchen, what should we do? Dragon Girl also stopped and returned to Yi Guchen's side. Her face was extremely solemn. It's okay. I am here. Yi Guchen said indifferently. His face was as calm as an ancient well. Dragon Girl glanced sideways at Yi Guchen. As long as she was by his side, she would always feel at ease. It was as if nothing could threaten him. On the other side, Kuei-shui Yinji wiped the blood from the corner of her mouth. She felt lucky. If Lei Jioming and the others did not appear, perhaps she would have died in Yi Guchen's hands today. Thinking of this, Kuei-shui Yinji looked at Yi Guchen with an extremely cold gaze. In the distance, Bai Zichen, who was hiding in the dark, looked at this scene with a cold smile. Zhou Tong did not go back on his words. He had indeed informed the barbarian saints to come and kill Yi Guchen. Do you think you can escape this time? Bai Zichen thought coldly in his heart. Lei Jioming, Yin Xiao Huomei and the others who had come this time were not holy princes of second-tier tribes like the blood barbarian tribe. They were holy princes of major tribes, and their strengths were incomparable. You don't seem to be surprised at all. Lei Jioming took a step forward. His expression was cold, and his body was surrounded by pitch-black lightning. He was Lei Jiuyo's younger brother. Although his glory was overshadowed by his elder brother, it didn't hinder his own strength. This time, Lei Jiuyo had indeed rushed over after receiving Zhou Tong's message. His first objective was naturally to obtain the exotic lightning in Yi Guchen's body. Within the Thunder Tribe, there was a special secret technique that could rob others of the mutated lightning they had refined. Lei Jioming also wanted to become a genius with dual mutated lightning, just like his brother. As for his second goal, it was naturally to see just how strong this sword sect, whose reputation was not weak even among the berserkers, was. Yin Xiao and Huomei obviously had the same idea. They coveted Yi Guchen's heavenly rare flames. Why should I be surprised? I already know who informed you to come here. Yi Guchen's tone was calm. Humph, it seems that you're not as stupid as he said. But in this situation, how can you turn around? Why don't you just surrender, and let us rob you of your mutated lightning? Then we can give you a quick death. Yen Xiao, the holy prince of the fire tribe, smiled coldly. They weren't holy princes of the blood barbarian tribe, so they weren't too afraid of Yi Guchen. Who has the right to ask me to surrender? You. Yi Guchen slowly raised his Xianming heavy sword. Alright, it's more interesting to struggle. Let me do it first. Yen Xiao, the holy prince, held the blazing giant axe and attacked alone. On the other hand, Huomei and Lei Jioming didn't attack for the time being. The holy princes of the barbarian tribe had their own pride. If not for special circumstances, they wouldn't have joined forces. If even Yen Xiao can't deal with him, then it's disappointing. Lei Jioming crossed his arms in front of his chest and looked at the scene indifferently. On the other side, Dragon Lady was also fighting with Kuei-shui Yinji, Shui Linglong and the others. Kuei-shui Yinji had been severely injured by Yi Guchen and couldn't use her full strength. Even with Shui Linglong and the others joining forces, they could barely deal with Dragon Lady. On the other side, Yin Xiao the Holy Prince held the blazing giant axe and rode on the fire demon demonic tiger. He charged straight at Yi Guchen. The fire demon demonic tiger was also a powerful rank 4 demonic beast. It was comparable to the peak divine soul realm. With the Holy Prince's power, the two combined forces made the impact extremely powerful. Boom! The flaming owl Saint Sun chopped down with his axe, carrying an intense blazing aura. Yi Guchen swung his Xianming heavy sword. Yen Xiao, the Holy Prince, focused on refining his body. His strength was strong, and with the support of the giant axe, he had a fierce fighting style. Yi Guchen had used brute force to defeat the barbarian race. He had used the brute force that the barbarian race was best at. Yi Guchen activated the power of his perfect physical body, and the power of his transformed invincible Vajra body. Yi Guchen's body surface was faintly green and gold. His strength instantly rose to a new level. With the addition of the Xianming heavy sword strength, the power of this blow was extremely strong. Humph, you want to fight me head-on? Seeing that Yi Guqin didn't dodge, the Holy Prince sneered. Compared to the Holy Prince of the barbarian tribe, the geniuses of the 7 superforces were at a disadvantage in terms of physical strength. Yi Guqin looked thin, and didn't look like someone who specialized in refining his body. Therefore, the Holy Prince couldn't help but look down on him. However, when Yi Guqin's heavy sword collided with the blazing giant axe, the Holy Prince's face suddenly changed. Bang! A loud explosion sounded. Yi Guqin retreated a few steps, but the Holy Prince and the fire demon tiger retreated more than 100 feet. Feeling the numbness in his arms, the Holy Prince was stunned. Yi Guqin's physical strength was far beyond his expectations. He actually forced Yan Xiao to retreat? Hua Mei'er and Lei Jiuming were surprised. They knew about Yan Zhao's physical strength. As if he wasn't convinced, the Holy Prince activated the secret technique of refining his body again. Streaks of crimson demonic patterns appeared on the surface of the flaming owl Holy Sun's skin. His originally tall and sturdy body seemed to have become even more muscular. Yi Guqin found it familiar. The crimson demonic patterns were similar to the body refining technique used by Shinta Miao. However, Shinta Miao's level was obviously not at the level of the Holy Prince. 9 forms of mountain splitting. The Holy Prince roared like a tiger roaring in the forest. The power of the fire totem surged all over his body. The first strike was blocked by Yi Guqin with his sword. Then came the second strike. The third strike. The fourth strike. With every strike, his power would multiply and his aura would become more ferocious. He has already used the 7th strike. It seems like the battle is about to end. Hua Mei'er said with some boredom. Hua Mei'er knew the power of the Holy Prince's 9 forms of mountain splitting the most. If Yan Xiao really used the 9th strike, even the double crown king of the fire tribe, Yan Xuanji, would not be able to block it easily. The 8th strike. The Holy Son of Yan Xiao slashed out with his axe again. Yi Guqin took another step back and groaned in his chest. However, his face was extremely calm. Finally, the 9th strike? Yi Guqin said indifferently. What? You did it on purpose? The Holy Prince's face froze. He originally thought that it was because of his unparalleled power that Yi Guqin did not have the ability to interrupt his 9-form combo. However, now it seemed that Yi Guqin had done it on purpose. He wanted the Holy Prince to use his most powerful technique. Arrogant brat. The result of your arrogance is to die. The Holy Prince's aura surged as he struck the 9th strike. This strike was accompanied by the image of a giant flaming tiger. It was extremely ferocious and shook the forest, causing the earth to tremble and crack. Facing such a powerful attack, Yi Guqin's heart was as calm as still water. A thick and heavy sword will was emitted. It was the edgeless sword will that was about to be completely comprehended. Yi Guqin wanted to use the Holy Prince's pressure to completely form his edgeless sword will. Chapter 485. Ever since Yi Guqin obtained the Xianming heavy sword, he had been trying to comprehend the edgeless sword essence. After such a long time of comprehension, in addition to the comprehension gained from several battles, Yi Guqin could be said to have almost touched the edge of comprehending the edgeless sword essence. At this moment, the Flaming Owl Saint Sun's strong move was based on strength, which could help Yi Guqin comprehend it. The essence of the edgeless sword essence was that the heavy sword was edgeless. The path of the sword was not fast and sharp, but it was as calm and unmoving as the earth, breaking tens of thousands of pounds with one blow. The Flaming Owl Saint Sun's axe was accompanied by the shadow of a giant flaming tiger, as if it really had the power to split a mountain. Under this strong pressure, Yi Guqin suddenly heard the sound of glass shattering in his mind. A familiar sword will that arose spontaneously took shape and spread out. It was the edgeless sword essence. Boom. An extremely ferocious sword intent spread out like tidal waves. Wave after wave of vibrations spread out in all directions, causing the ground to crack. The surrounding trees were blown apart by these vibrations, turning into wood chips and dust that filled the sky. This Whether it was Huamei Lei Jioming, or the Dragon Lady, Kuei Shui Yinji Shui Linglong, or the others who were fighting not far away, they all looked surprised. Yi Guchen's sword essence was extremely strong, and it swept out around. Bang! Yi Guchen did not use any sword techniques, nor did he use any fancy sword moves. He simply swept out with his sword and collided with the flaming Owl Saint Sun's giant axe. At the moment of collision, waves of vibration spread out again. This was not the effect of the Great Void Sword Wave, but the sword wave that the edgeless sword essence carried. It could be said that when Yi Guchen used the edgeless sword essence, countless sword waves spread out and bombarded all directions. This is a peerless sword essence. Lei Jioming's face instantly became serious. This strong sword essence had obviously exceeded the scope of an ordinary sword essence. It could only be a peerless sword essence. Boom! When the two clashed, the Yan Shao Holy Sun's expression changed drastically. If Yi Guchen's earlier strength had only surprised the Yan Shao Holy Sun somewhat, then this was not the case. But now, Yi Guchen's sword force was like Mount Tai, causing him to feel a suffocating pressure. The flaming Owl Saint Sun's body retreated dozens of feet, his chest trembling violently. That terrifying sword wave contained an extremely strong vibrating force. If the flaming Owl Saint had not focused on refining his body and blocked it with his moves, he would have been seriously injured. Even so, the fire demon demonic tiger he was sitting on let out a sorrowful roar. Before it directly collapsed onto the ground, its breathing weak. The fire demon demonic beast was struck by the sword wave, and its internal organs were all ruptured. It was not far from death. Damn it! The flaming Owl Saint Sun's face darkened. At this moment, Yi Guchen felt that his mind was clear, as if a dusty mirror had been polished. Edgeless sword will was the sword will that he had comprehended to perfection in his previous life, so when he comprehended it, he had a feeling of mastery. His proficiency level was close to that of the Shura sword will. Yi Guchen swept out with his sword, accompanied by the pervasive sword qi. An extremely strong pressure, like Mount Tai, directly covered the flaming Owl Saint Sun's body. What kind of technique is this? The flaming Owl Saint Sun was shocked. He felt as if the surrounding air had turned into extremely dense mercury, and his movements became sluggish. Yi Guchen's lips curled up in a cold smile. This was only the initial manifestation of the edgeless sword will's characteristics. Every peerless sword will could bring a special enhancement to the cultivator's strength. For example, the murderous aura of the Shura sword will. For example, the extreme speed brought about by the sword will of the void. And this edgeless sword will naturally had its own characteristics. It could create a powerful domain to suppress the enemy, making the enemy's hands and feet tied. Yi Guchen was only at the initial manifestation, and had not truly released it. But even so, the Yan Shao Holy Sun was still shocked, and he was a little overwhelmed. Boom, boom, boom. As Yi Guchen fully comprehended the edgeless sword will, his attacks became more vigorous and ferocious. Even the flaming Owl Saint Sun was gradually at a disadvantage. Bang! After another collision, the flaming Owl Saint Sun's figure retreated rapidly, and blood faintly flowed out from the corner of his mouth. Yi Guchen's eyes were as sharp as a sword, and he directly stepped forward and slashed down with his sword. Oh no! Seeing this, Huamei twisted her waist and directly flashed out. Deep sky flame! Huamei shouted, and a faint black flame surged out from her arms. It turned into two flame whips and lashed out at Yi Guchen. Is this the heavenly flame? Yi Guchen saw it from the corner of his eye. He executed wave-like subtle steps, and his body moved sideways. The Xianming heavy sword was like a black shield, blocking Huamei's attack. However, the deep sky flame's temperature was extremely high. Even with the Xianming heavy sword in between, Yi Guchen could feel an extreme heat. At the same time, a fierce look flashed across the flaming Owl Saint Sun's eyes. He also summoned a crimson heaven and earth unique flame, demonic tiger fire. Yan Shao roared. As the crimson flame rolled, it vaguely condensed into the shadow of a giant flaming tiger, roaring at Yi Guchen. The two Saint Sons and Saintess of the Fire Tribe tacitly summoned their heavenly flames at the same time, besieging Yi Guchen. Yi Guchen's expression did not change. The fire tribe was born with an affinity with the power of fire, so it was not strange for them to possess heavenly flames. Yi Guqin also summoned the heavenly sun Xianming fire. The three heavenly flames collided, and the intense heat turned the surrounding forest and vegetation into ashes. How can you compare to the fire tribe when it comes to heavenly flames? Huomei sneered. The flame whips formed by the deep sky flame were like spiritual snakes, lashing at Yi Guqin from all directions. The flaming owl Saint Sun also exerted his full strength, chopping down at Yi Guqin with his flaming axe. He did not believe that they could not defeat Yi Guqin with their combined strength. Seeing this, Yi Guqin activated the edgeless sword essence again. The Xianming heavy sword slashed horizontally, accompanied by waves of sword wave. At the same time, an extremely strong binding force made the flaming owl Saint Sun and Huomei feel a great amount of pressure. What kind of technique is this? Huomei's expression changed. She felt that the surrounding space was squeezing her. Great Void Sword Wave. Yi Guqin performed the Great Void Sword Wave. The Supreme King level sword art, which had already reached a higher level, and the enhancement of the edgeless sword essence, caused the space around Yi Guqin to vibrate like the surface of a drum. The terrifying sword wave spread out like ripples. Boom. Boom. The flaming owl Saint Sun and Huomei were sent flying again, blood flowing from the corners of their mouths. They looked at each other and could see the killing intent in each other's eyes. Heavenly demonic flaming tiger. Netherfire sparrow. Both of them activated their supreme totems. Two light figures spread out, accompanied by smoke and flames. A huge flaming tiger and a sparrow surrounded by faint black flames appeared at the same time. Yi Guqin's face was calm when he saw this. His sword essence surged again, and the surrounding void seemed to be distorted. Immediately, an extremely illusory domain spread out. Vaguely, an illusory primordial sacred mountain appeared in the void, as if it could suppress the heavens. This was the sword domain of the edgeless sword essence. Chapter 486. The sword realm was a technique that could only be used after one had comprehended the sword principle. However, if one had a profound understanding of the sword essence, one could also manifest the illusory sword realm in advance. Unlike the Azura sword essence, the edgeless sword essence was the sword essence that Yi Guqin was most familiar with. Hence, after comprehending it, Yi Guqin could directly display the illusory sword realm. What Yi Guqin displayed before him was the sword realm of the edgeless sword essence, the gravity sword realm. The illusory immemorial sacred mountain was still spinning in mid-air. As it spun, waves of energy spread out and covered the surrounding forest. In an instant the Yanxiao Holy Sun, Huomei Lei Jioming, Kuei Shui Yinji, Shui Linglong, and the others who were not far away felt a huge pressure as long as they were covered by the gravity sword realm. It was as if the immemorial sacred mountain was pressing on their shoulders. Damn it, what is this? The Yanxiao Holy Sun, Huomei and the others were shocked. Although Yi Guqin had used a similar technique earlier, it had only caused some pressure. Now, in the gravity sword realm, the Yanxiao Holy Sun and the others felt as if they were carrying a huge mountain. Their movements were not as agile as before. This is... Dragon Lady, who was in the gravity sword realm, was shocked. She realized that she was not affected at all. Yi Guqin could naturally control the gravity sword realm that he released. If I can truly transform the edgeless sword essence into sword principle, I can directly control the immemorial sacred mountain and suppress all my enemies, Yi Guqin thought to himself. However, Yi Guqin was still satisfied with the performance of the gravity sword realm. Under the restriction of the gravity sword realm, the Yanxiao Holy Sun and the others were greatly suppressed and restrained. Dragon Lady's eyes flashed as she looked indifferently at Kuei Shui Yinji, Shui Linglong and the others. Oh no! Kuei Shui Yinji and the others' hearts sank. The gravity sword realm was like a swamp that restricted their advantages in all aspects. However, Dragon Lady was not affected at all. Under such circumstances, Dragon Lady naturally had the advantage. On the other side, the Yanxiao Holy Sun and Huomei, who had used the totem spirit manifestation technique, gritted their teeth and held on in the gravity sword realm. Boom, boom, boom. Yi Guqian's sword swept out and collided with the two totem spirits. How did his speed become so fast? The flaming owl Saint Sun gritted his teeth. It's not that he's getting faster, it's that we're getting slower. Huomei was sweating profusely, her face red. Inside the gravity sword domain, she felt as if she was carrying a huge mountain on her back. Every single movement was extremely strenuous. If not for the fact that they were part of the barbarian race, and paid attention to the cultivation of the physical body, they would not have been able to do so. If it were an ordinary martial artist, it would consume an enormous amount of physical strength. Yi Guqian held the Xianming heavy sword in his hand and resonated with the air. Waves of sword waves merged with the gravity sword realm, which made the two saints of the fire tribe feel exhausted. Bang! After another collision, the flaming owl saint spat out blood and retreated. As for Huomei, because she was a woman, her physical strength was slightly weaker, and she was in an even worse state. After spitting out a mouthful of blood, she was actually forced to half kneel on the ground by the gravity. Lei Jioming, are you still not going to make a move? The flaming owl Saint Sun roared. The barbarian tribe saints had their own pride, but it was also built on the fact that they were superior. Now that they could not even protect their lives, they did not care about their pride. Seeing this, Lei Jioming's eyes flashed with black lightning. He was also bound by the gravity sword domain, but Lei Jioming's physical strength was even stronger than the flaming owl Saint Sun's after being tempered by the unusual lightning. Hence, although the gravity sword domain could bind him, it was slightly weaker than the flaming owl Saint Sun and the others. I didn't expect you to have such means to create a domain. But even so, I will use a secret technique to take away the exotic lightning in your body. At that time, I will be like my brother and become a peerless holy sun with dual exotic lightning in my body. Lei Jioming's eyes revealed a trace of desire. Oh, Yi Guqian raised his eyebrows. Lei Jioming probably did not know that Yi Guqian did not only have one type of unusual lightning, but two. Moreover, the two types of unusual lightning could merge. This was something that even his brother Lei Jioming could not do. Boom. Lei Jioming did not say much. His footsteps moved slightly and there was a thunderous boom. Accompanied by the flash of lightning, he quickly charged towards Yi Guqian. This was a movement technique of the Thunder Tribe, Thunder Steps. As he charged towards Yi Guqian, Lei Jioming took out a bright lightning blade. It was equally sharp and it shot out lightning. Oh, your speed is not bad, Yi Guqian said indifferently. To be able to have such speed in the gravity sword domain, the movement technique must be of a high rank. However, Lei Jioming frowned. Thunder Steps was the top movement technique of the Thunder Tribe. Its speed was as fast as lightning. However, in the gravity sword domain, the speed of Thunder Steps was reduced by more than 40%. This was already a great restriction. Yi Guqian also used Shadow Steps. The two figures crossed each other. The Xianming heavy sword collided with the lightning blade. Sword qi and lightning spread in all directions. Lei Jioming's thunder totem power spread throughout his body. As he raised his hand, electricity appeared in the void. Raging thunder kill. Lei Jioming took a step forward, and his body flashed. The lightning blade shot out violent lightning and stabbed towards Yi Guqian's temple. Yi Guqian blocked with his sword and used the ultimate move of Boundless Heaven Sword Principle. He turned into a boundless heaven. Countless sword qi soared into the sky and blocked Lei Jioming's ferocious attack. The two of them clashed continuously, and it was an intense fight. However, because it was in the gravity sword domain, Lei Jioming's consumption was far greater than Yi Guqian's. His sword domain can actually last for such a long time? Lei Jioming thought to himself. His gaze was solemn. Logically speaking, to maintain such a powerful sword domain, it would definitely consume a lot of true qi and soul power. However, how would he know that Yi Guqian's sea of qi and sea of consciousness were far superior to people of the same realm? Although the gravity sword domain consumed a lot of true qi, it was still difficult for Yi Guqian to be exhausted. If so, then I cannot drag it on for too long. Lei Jioming's mind was set, and he did not drag it on any longer. He gripped the air with one hand and activated the mutated thunder in his body. Suddenly, a violent black thunderbolt spread out from his arm. Like a spider web, it covered the surrounding void. This is the 9 underworld black demonic thunder, Yi Guchen thought to himself when he saw it. The 9 underworld black demonic thunder was not of the Xian thunder level. However, its power was not ordinary. It was even more domineering than his purple electric nether thunder. Of course, the attributes of the two mutated thunders were not the same. Yi Guchen was intrigued and immediately took out the purple electric nether thunder. Humph, you indeed have the mutated thunder. However, it will still belong to me in the end. Lei Jiuming's eyes were burning with passion. The mutated thunder was very rare. Even in the Thunder Clan, not everyone could have it, let alone having 2 of them. Hence, Lei Jiuming was determined to get Yi Guchen's mutated thunder. However, was that all? Yi Guchen had a faint smile at the corner of his mouth. Following his activation, there was another silver thunderbolt that cut through the void and shook the heavens. This is... Lei Jiuming's voice was choked as a tinge of surprise appeared in his eyes. The Flaming Owl Saint and Huamei widened their eyes. At this moment, who was the Thunder Clan saint? Chapter 487. The Flaming Owl Holy Sun. And the rest thought so too. Because at this moment, compared to Lei Jiuming, Yi Guchen was surrounded by 2 colored thunderbolts and looked more like the Holy Sun of the Thunder Clan. The power of Yi Guchen's mutated lightning was even stronger than Lei Jiuming's. Moreover, he had released 2 types of mutated lightning at the same time. The visual impact was incomparable. How is this possible? How can you have 2 types of mutated lightning? Lei Jiuming stared at Yi Guchen in disbelief. The shock in his heart was indescribable. In his heart, his brother Lei Jiuming should be the number 1 thunder sovereign with 2 types of mutated lightning. However, the mutated lightning was extremely violent. The reason why Lei Jiuming could refine it was because he had the bloodline of the thunder god. However, the young man in front of him was famous for his swordsmanship. Logically speaking, he should be extremely lucky to have obtained 1 mutated lightning. However, he had obtained 2. Otherwise, he would have refined them perfectly at the same time. How could Lei Jiuming not be jealous? This was something that even he, the Holy Son of the Thunder Clan, could not do. Moreover, after sensing the power of the Silver Thunderbolt, Lei Jiuming knew that the Silver Thunderbolt was at least of the Dark Lightning level. No, I don't believe it. The mutated lightning in your body is just a gift. Lei Jiuming's eyes were burning with passion. He stepped on the thunder steps and held the thunder blade in his hand. Once again he attacked Yi Guchen fiercely. As he waved the thunder blade, the pitch-black 9 underworld demonic lightning spread into the void like a spider web. Yi Guchen's face was cold. The purple lightning nether thunder and the extreme void dark thunder spread out at the same time and wrapped around the Xianming heavy sword. He waved his sword and a violent shockwave with powerful 2-colored mutated lightning collided with Lei Jiuming's thunder blade. Suddenly, sparks flew and lightning intertwined. However, no matter how strong the black 9 underworld demonic lightning was, how could it be stronger than the impact of 2 types of mutated lightning? The black 9 underworld demonic lightning was torn apart by Yi Guchen's 2 types of mutated lightning. However, the remaining power of the mutated lightning also charged towards Lei Jiuming. Humph! Lei Jiuming's figure retreated continuously, his chest shook violently, his arms were charred black, and a trace of blood seeped out from the corner of his mouth. If it weren't for the fact that he had been tempered by unusual lightning since he was a child, this strike alone would have severely injured him. I will not lose. Lei Jiuming's eyes focused as he activated the totem spirit. In an instant, with a long roar, the pitch-black black demon thunder of the underworld rose from Lei Jiuming's body and gathered into a pitch-black thunder beast in the air. This was Lei Jiuming's supreme totem, the 9 Serenity Thunder Beast. The spirit of the 9 Serenities Thunder Beast was surrounded by pitch-black lightning. It looked like a swan and eye, but also like a qilin. After summoning the 9 Serene Thunderous Beast, Lei Jiuming's aura rose steadily. Even lightning shot out from his eyes. Roar. With a fierce roar, the 9 Depths Thunder Beast charged straight at Yi Guchen. Yi Guchen's Zhen Qi began to gather, and the power of the strange thunder became even more violent. Two different types of lightning tore the sky and cracked the earth as they swept through the surroundings and bombarded the Nine Serenities Thunder Beast. Rumbling Thunder Secret Skill. At the same time, Lei Jiuming displayed the secret skill of the Thunder Tribe. As the Rumbling Thunder secret skill was displayed, the lightning on his body became even more violent, as if it was boiling. At this moment, he could severely injure an expert in the 8th transformation of the Divine Soul Realm with a casual strike of lightning. Thunderstorm Slash. Lei Jiuming's body also turned into a pitch-black lightning. Together with the Nine Serenities Thunder Beast, he charged at Yi Guqin. The dazzling lightning gathered in his hand, forming a pitch-black lightning ball. Boom. In Yi Guqin's mind, the Star Soul Wave spread out. Lei Jiuming was hit and his body stopped in an instant. As for the Nine Serenities Thunder Beast, it was not affected at all. Yi Guqin's heavy sword slashed down. Accompanied by the two-colored lightning, it smashed onto the Nine Serenities Thunder Beast's head. In addition to the impact of the strange thunder, the black lightning on the surface of the Nine Serenities Thunder Beast's body was dispersed. At this moment, Lei Jiuming finally attacked. Yi Guqin's other hand clenched in the air. Powerful lightning gathered in his hand, forming a two-colored strange thunder ball. His fist collided with Lei Jiuming's move. Majestic lightning flashed in all directions. Wherever it touched, the ground cracked inch by inch, destroying the forest. At the moment when the two moves collided, Lei Jiuming felt an extremely powerful physical strength, accompanied by the strange thunder power, fiercely hit him. It made his arm feel numb, and his arm bones were faintly broken. Puff. Finally, Lei Jiuming could not help but spit out a mouthful of blood as he retreated dozens of feet. Lei Jiuming had shown signs of defeat. What are you waiting for? Attack together. Lei Jiuming's face was extremely gloomy. He wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and said coldly, with his identity as the Thunder Tribe's holy son, facing the geniuses of the 7 major forces, he did not even spare them a glance. But now he actually needed to team up. To him this was a great humiliation. When the Flaming Owl Holy Sun and Huomeier saw this, their eyes were filled with determination. They knew that if Yi Guqin did not die in this battle, then they would. Therefore, the three of them were determined to use their strongest moves to end Yi Guqin's life. The three of their totem spirits rushed towards Yi Guqin at the same time, and they also used all their moves. Flowing Light Fire Feather. Huomeier's slender waist twisted and her arms stretched out. The fire elemental totem power erupted from her body. Streaks of deep heaven fire shot out like a rain of fire, its power shocking. Tiger Roar Flaming Demon Slash. The Flaming Owl Holy Sun held the flaming giant axe in his hand. Totem power gathered on the axe, along with the power of the Tiger Demon Fire, and the axe slashed towards Yi Guqin. As for Lei Jiuming, his eyes turned into lightning. Above the firmament, dark clouds suddenly gathered and thunder clouds rolled. Lei Jiuming raised one hand and clenched it in the air. He said brazenly, "Thunder punishment." Whoosh. As soon as he said that, endless lightning suddenly poured down from the dark clouds. It was as if it was going to cleanse the earth. Its power was terrifying. Facing the 3 barbarian Holy Sun's ultimate moves, and the pincer attack of the 3 totem spirits, it could be said that even if Xian Hao, the young war emperor and the others were here, they would be in great danger. Not far away, the dragon lady had already suppressed Kuei Shui Inji and the others. However, when she saw this from the corner of her eyes, her face turned pale. The fluctuation was too powerful. It was not something that an ordinary person could withstand. Dragon lady, I'll let you be proud. Once Yi Guqin dies, you won't be able to survive. Kuei Shui Inji's mouth was bleeding, but her face was vicious. In the distance, Bai Zichen, who was hiding in the dark, was also looking at this scene happily. Yi Guqin, you're finally going to die. Bai Zichen was extremely excited. His eyes were bloodshot. He could not wait to see Yi Guqin's body being torn apart. In the field, the endless fluctuation of attacks finally engulfed Yi Guqin's figure. Yi Guqin did not even make a sound. Is he dead? At this moment, Lei Jiuming, the Flaming Owl Holy Sun, Huomeier Kuei Shui Inji, and Bai Zichen in the distance all stared at him. The dragon lady's face turned pale. She clenched her hands tightly. However, at this moment, An extremely dazzling golden light suddenly spread out from the smoke. Then, under everyone's shocked gaze, a golden lotus slowly bloomed. It was the sword sect's unique skill, Reincarnation Sword Lotus. Chapter 488. The golden lotus protected Yi Guqin's body. As it spun, the 36 petals slowly bloomed. This was the sword sect's ultimate technique that Yi Guqin had comprehended on the 8th floor of the sword sect pagoda, the Reincarnation Sword Lotus. Compared to when he could only comprehend 18 leaves in the beginning, Yi Guqin could now unleash 36 leaves of the sword lotus. Although it was still some distance away from Wind-Sweeping Tower's 72 leaves, its power was already at the level of a trump card among all of Yi Guqin's martial arts techniques. Yi Guqin rarely used the Reincarnation Sword Lotus, but its power was not inferior to the 6th form of the god-slaying sword art, the heaven-splitting sword soul, and the merciless heavens. Moreover, Yi Guqin discovered that the Reincarnation Sword Lotus was actually shaped like a lotus. It could be used to attack the enemy and defend oneself. The sharp sword qi could not hurt Yi Guqin at all. Therefore, it was extremely good for defense. Its effect was even better than the protection of Luo Tian. Under the contrast of the golden lotus, Yi Guqin looked like a god who had descended to the world with an otherworldly aura. How is this possible? Lei Jioming and the other two were already stunned. He couldn't be any clearer about the power of the moves they used. However, the three of them could not cause much damage to Yi Guqin even when they joined forces. The dragon lady's heart was pounding, and her emotions were fluctuating. At first, she was not as nervous as Yi Guqin, but now, she was relieved. She looked at Kuei Shui Yingji and Shui Linglong again. At this moment, their faces were even paler. Yi Guqin's strength was really something that they could not compare to. As for Bai Zichen, who was hibernating in the distance, the veins on his forehead were bulging, and his face was ferocious. Why isn't he dead yet? Bai Zichen was extremely unwilling to accept this. Yi Guqin's strength was beyond everyone's expectations. At this moment, Yi Guqin's expression was indifferent as he glanced at Lei Jioming and the other two. Lei Jioming and the other two's hearts sank slightly. Since you've made your move, it's my turn now, Yi Guqin said indifferently. The golden sword lotus outside his body abruptly left his body, and expanded explosively in midair. Between the 36 petals of the lotus, there seemed to be countless sword energies intertwining and cutting each other. The past life sword lotus was an ultimate technique of the sword sect, and it was extremely complicated and formidable. It was absolutely impossible for an ordinary person to survive once they fell into it. Quickly retreat. Lei Jioming shouted loudly. He used thunder steps and was about to retreat. The flaming owl Saint Sun and Huomei retreated at the same time. Yi Guqin's eyes turned cold. Can you escape? A domain that was as powerful as a mountain spread out and enveloped everyone present once again. It was the gravity sword domain. Lei Jioming and the other two's speed suddenly dropped. As for the golden sword lotus, it was like a golden mountain range that suppressed the three figures within it. Soon after, countless strands of golden sword qi erupted as if they were boiling. The miserable cries of Huomei and the others rang out. In just a short while, blood and broken bones spurted out from the golden lotus. The golden sword lotus looked extremely beautiful and magnificent. However, it was the most powerful killing move. It was comparable to being cut into pieces by 1,000 blades. Seeing the three saints turn into pieces of flesh and blood in an instant, Shui Yingji, Shui Linglong and the others' faces were extremely pale. Dragon Girl did not let go of this opportunity and immediately attacked. With the help of the gravity sword domain, Shui Yingji, Shui Linglong and the others were killed by Dragon Girl in the end. After everything was settled, Dragon Girl heaved a sigh of relief. Her heart was still pounding. If it was not for Yi Guqin, they would be in a dangerous situation. Dragon Girl felt lucky to have roped in such a powerful ally. Why do I feel that you haven't shown your true strength? Dragon Girl glanced at Yi Guqin and said. Yi Guqin smiled and did not say anything. His opponents were the Triple Crown Kings, and even the Quadruple Crown Kings of the barbarian tribe. Although Lei Jioming and the others were not weak, They were not qualified for him to use his full strength. Dragon Girl wanted to say something, but Yi Guchen said, "Wait here. I will go and settle something first." After saying that, Yi Guchen looked at the dense forest in the distance. An extremely cold light flashed in his eyes. In the next moment, he used the shadow step and flashed away. Dragon Girl looked in that direction thoughtfully. As expected, there were also people from the 7 major forces who were trying to frame Yi Guchen. In the dark, after seeing Yi Guchen kill Lei Jioming and the others, Bai Zichen wanted to escape immediately. However, Yi Guchen's divine soul perception range was very wide. He could not escape from Yi Guchen's lock. Whoosh! A sword chi came from behind. Bai Zichen could not dodge in time, and was hit in the back. He spat out a mouthful of blood and fell to the ground. When he slowly raised his head, he saw Yi Guchen, who was dressed in a black robe, looking at him indifferently. "What are you doing? Why did you attack me?" Bai Zichen asked evasively. "Are you still playing dumb?" Yi Guchen said coldly. "I don't know what you are talking about. I just happened to pass by and saw you fighting. With the grudge between you and me, I will not help you. I was just observing in the dark." "Why? Are you going to kill me too?" Bai Zichen tried to defend himself. "You were the one who followed me in Black Rock City that day, right?" Yi Guchen put his hands behind his back and secretly held a jade slip in his hand. "I don't know anything." Bai Zichen's eyes showed a hint of panic. "That day in Black Rock City, I killed the masked man's leg and you." Yi Guchen flicked his finger. Sword chi burst out and tore Bai Zichen's pants, revealing a sword wound. "You." Bai Zichen's face alternated between green and white with extreme panic. He knew that Yi Guchen would not show any mercy when facing an enemy. "What do you want to do? Do you want to kill a fellow disciple?" Bai Zichen said. He knew that it was useless to defend himself at this moment. "I can give you a chance to live. Tell me who is the mastermind?" Yi Guchen asked. In fact, he already knew in his heart that this was the case. He just needed evidence. "Is that true?" Bai Zichen gritted his teeth. "I have never taken you seriously," Yi Guchen said indifferently. Bai Zichen was furious, but he still snorted coldly and said, "It was Zhou Tong who roped me in to deal with you. Not only that, he also wants to unite everyone who has a grudge against you to deal with you." Yi Guchen put away the jade slip in his hand with a cold gaze. "What are you doing? You said you wouldn't kill me." Bai Zichen panicked. "I won't kill you, I'll only." Yi Guchen flicked his finger. The 6-pulse divine sword shot out, stabbing at Bai Zichen's wrist, ankle, and the chi vessel below his abdomen. With a puff, Bai Zichen's chi vessel was crippled. Not only that, the tendons in his hand and leg were all severed. Ah! A heart-wrenching pain caused Bai Zichen to scream miserably. Large beads of sweat spread on his face. "You actually crippled me." Bai Zichen's heart was dead. With his chi vessel destroyed and his limbs crippled, Bai Zichen was like a cripple at this moment. "This is also your punishment," Yi Guchen said and left. Yi Guchen. Bai Zichen let out a heart-wrenching roar. Although Yi Guchen did not personally kill him, what was the difference between a crippled person and a dead person in a place like the ancient desolate forbidden zone? "Go find Zhou Tong. Only he can save me." Bai Zichen took out a jade slip and crushed it. At the same time, he crawled on the ground like a dead dog, leaving behind trails of blood. He was unwilling to accept this. He still wanted to take revenge on Yi Guchen. After an hour, Zhou Tong appeared in front of Bai Zichen. He was dressed in white and waved a folding fan as he looked at Bai Zichen indifferently. Zhou Tong, save me." Bai Zichen crawled to Zhou Tong's feet and hugged his leg. The former second in the Sword Sect Tower Forest's inner court is now in such a state. Pitiful. Zhou Tong shook his head slightly. From the moment Lei Jioming and the others did not send him a message, Zhou Tong knew that the plan had failed. Yi Guchen's strength had exceeded his expectations. "I must see Yi Guchen die with my own eyes." Bai Zichen's handsome face was now covered in dust and blood, looking like a malicious ghost with resentment. "I promised you that Yi Guchen will definitely die, but you might not see it with your own eyes," Zhou Tong said indifferently. "What do you mean?" Bai Zichen's expression froze as his heart turned cold. Boom. Zhou Tong did not reply. Instead, he ruthlessly stomped his foot with vigorous true energy on Bai Zichen's back, directly crushing his chest and shattering his heart, ribs and everything else. You! Bai Zichen spat out a large mouthful of blood mixed with his shattered organs. His face was still twisted. What's the point of keeping a cripple? Zhou Tong said coldly. Bai Zichen's eyes were wide open as he died with remaining grievances. Yi Guchen, who he regarded as his mortal enemy, did not kill him with his own hands. Instead, it was Zhou Tong who killed him. Filled with endless resentment and regret, Bai Zichen died hatefully. However, Zhou Tong's eyes grew colder. Yi Guchen, very good. It seems that it won't be easy to kill you. However, everyone has a weakness, and your current weakness is the Sword Sect Tower Forest. Zhou Tong's lips curled into a sinister sneer. He had a plan to destroy the entire Sword Sect Tower Forest's inner court. Chapter 489. After dealing with Bai Zichen, Yi Guchen returned to the altar. Is it done? Dragon Lady asked casually. Yes. Yi Guchen nodded and said. What do you plan to do next? Since Kuei Shui Inji is dead, I should return to the Water Tribe and gather the people who are loyal to me. Dragon Lady twirled her blue hair and said. Yes. You can have the Water God item, Yi Guchen said. The water altar had a rare god item like the 9 Seas Pearl. Since Kuei Shui Inji was dead, the treasure naturally belonged to them. Dragon Lady shook her head. No, Dragon Lady said. This 9 Sea God Pearl is useful to me, but it is not that big. It is very useful to you. After you refine it, your totem should be perfect. I will tell you how to awaken your totem. Yi Guchen played a big part in Kuei Shui Inji's death. Dragon Lady was not going to be stingy. Alright then. Yi Guchen did not stand on ceremony with Dragon Lady. The way to awaken the totem is to use your soul to communicate with the totem after your totem power is complete. Of course, the test is very dangerous. If your mind is not strong enough, you will not succeed. You will be consumed by the totem's will. Dragon Lady sounded serious. As someone who had been through it, Dragon Lady still felt scared when she thought about the test of the totem's will. I understand. Thank you. Yi Guchen nodded. If it were some other test, Yi Guchen might have thought it was troublesome. But when it came to the test of mind, Yi Guchen was better than most people. His mind was unshakable. Why are you being so polite with me? Dragon Lady rolled her eyes at Yi Guchen. She said goodbye and left. Yi Guchen did not waste time. He went to the altar and took the 9 Seas Pearl. He started to refine it into his body. It had to be said that the 9 Seas Divine Pearl was a top-tier existence among water-type divine items. The water-type power it contained was much more powerful than the mystic water jade and the heart of the sea. As soon as Yi Guchen began to refine the pearl, he sensed that the soaring serpent totem on his 5-colored golden core was beginning to stir. It was like a black hole, unleashing a powerful gravitational force that greedily absorbed the power of the 9 Seas God Pearl. While Yi Guchen was immersed in his cultivation, the entire ancient desolation Forbidden Zone was in an uproar. The source of the commotion was Yi Guchen killing Lei Jioming and the other holy sons. Originally, no one should have known about this matter. However, it was as if it had grown wings, and practically everyone knew about it. Yi Guchen's actions were an encouragement to the 7 great forces, but to the barbarian race, it was a humiliation. Under such an atmosphere, the conflict between the 7 forces and the brute race became even more intense. Somewhere in the ancient desolate Forbidden Zone, a figure with long blue hair and a cold face grabbed the neck of a prodigy from one of the 7 forces. Cold lightning shot out of his eyes. It was the peerless holy son of the lightning tribe Lei Jiuyo. He exerted force in his hand and crushed the throat of the prodigy. His face was cold. Yi Guchen, how dare you kill my brother? I will repay you 100 times, 1,000 times. Lightning was brewing in Lei Jioming's eyes. What was shocking was that the lightning in his eyes was not the same. Like Yi Guchen, he had the dual strange lightning in his body. At this moment, Lei Jiuyo sensed something and took out a jade slip. Someone had sent him a message. Oh great! Yi Guchen, I will collect some debts first. Lei Juyo muttered to himself. His eyes were cold as he left. On the other side, the Fire Tribe's Double Crown King, Yin Xuanji, had red hair and green eyes. He had also received the message. Against the Sword Sect Ta Lin? Oh, the Sword Sect is a threat. However, the people of the Fire Tribe are not that easy to kill. Yin Xuanji sneered and left. At the same time, Jin Zhanglia, the Triple Crown King, the Golden Sun Saint and the Feng Tribe's Triple Crown King, Feng Xiaotian, had also received the message. The saints and saintesses of the Wood Tribe and the Earthen Tribe also sensed the wind and began to move. At this moment, the entire ancient desolate forbidden zone felt like a storm was brewing. Before they reached the ancient desolate ring, a great battle was about to break out. Yi Guqin, who was in the middle of the storm, had already refined the 9 Seas divine pearl on the water altar. After he had completely refined the totem, Yi Guqin could feel that the power of the soaring serpent totem was about to overflow. A strong water energy filled the air, causing the surrounding forest to be filled with water mist. At the same time, Yi Guqin's comprehension of the water will had reached a high level. This was the blessing of the divine item. Since this is the case, let's start to awaken the totems. Yi Guqin thought to himself. He also wanted to know if he would become the barbarian tribe's quintuple crown king after all 5 totems were awakened. He might also comprehend the 5 elements sword will. At that time, Yi Guqin would be a sword cultivator with 3 types of sword will. Not many people in the South Sky region had such talent in the sword Dao. Yi Guqin calmed down and closed his eyes to communicate with the soaring serpent totem with his soul power. Yi Guqin's soul power gradually condensed and seeped into the soaring serpent totem. In an instant, Yi Guqin felt his surroundings darken. It was as if he had arrived in another world. In the boundless ocean, waves rolled. Yi Guqin's body was like a small boat, drifting in the ocean. The ocean was endless and boundless. It seemed like there was no end to it. Is this the test of the soaring serpent totem? Feeling the endless despair and loneliness, Yi Guqin's heart turned cold. This kind of test was nothing to him. Then the endless waves rolled and the ocean flipped. Yi Guqin was sometimes sucked into deep-sea whirlpools, and sometimes sunk to the bottom of the sea. Yi Guqin was very indifferent to something that ordinary people would be terrified of. Not only that, he also used this opportunity to comprehend the concept of water. Although water had a calm side, it was no weaker than fire when it went berserk. This was the 2 sides of the coin. Yi Guqin seemed to have understood something. At this moment, in the ocean illusion, a huge serpent of unknown miles long emerged from the ocean. Its wings extended from its ribs. It was like a real dragon. Sometimes it rolled the ocean, sometimes it soared into the sky. It controlled the ultimate meaning of water. Finally, the soaring serpent opened its mouth and swallowed Yi Guqin. Yi Guqin did not resist. He was very calm and his heart was like a boulder. Just as he was about to be swallowed up, Yi Guqin in reality suddenly opened his eyes. At this moment, his dark eyes seemed to have turned blue. He looked similar to the dragon lady, but he was more powerful. Totem spirit manifestation. Yi Guqin's eyes shone brightly and he let out a long roar. With a boom, the power of the water totem burst out. Then, the shadow of a huge serpent with wings appeared in the void. With a roar, the entire ancient desolate forbidden zone seemed to tremble. It was accompanied by an extreme pressure of the progenitor totem. That mighty pressure spread out, and it caused all the berserkers in the entire forbidden zone to be shocked. Chapter 490. Where did this pressure come from? In the forbidden zone of ancient desolation, many holy sons and holy daughters of the barbarian tribe looked at Yi Guqin in surprise. The pressure did not differentiate between attributes. The pressure of an ancestor-level totem could suppress anyone below the ancestor level. Even the supreme totem would be suppressed. Why do I have the urge to worship him? Some of the barbarian saints looked uncertain. In their respective clans, their statuses were extremely high and lofty. Yet now they actually felt a sense of reverence towards that indescribable pressure. Even the supreme totems within their bodies were faintly trembling. Somewhere in the barren forbidden zone, Dragon Lady, who was looking for the water tribe, suddenly stopped. Her beautiful eyes were filled with surprise as she looked in the direction of the pressure. As the saintess of the water tribe, she was more sensitive to the pressure of the water ancestor totem than the other barbarians. The dragon girl opened her tender lips slightly and muttered to herself in a daze. It can't be. That wave. Could it be Yi Guchen? Dragon Lady had just parted with Yi Guchen, and she was the one who told Yi Guchen how to awaken the totem. And now, the direction where the totem pressure came from was where Yi Guchen had been. Dragon Lady was smart. How could she not know that the ancestor-level totem pressure was coming from Yi Guchen after he awakened? How is that possible? Ancestor totem. No wonder I felt that his totem could help the serene blue serpent totem evolve. Dragon Lady suddenly realized. The reason why the ancestor totem was a top totem was that it had a special ability. It could suppress and help the totem below the ancestor level to evolve. That was why the ancestor totem was so rare. Dragon Lady was sure that if the news of Yi Guchen having the ancestor totem spread, the elders of the water tribe would not sit still. Even though the water tribe was not as cruel as the other barbarian tribes, they would not tolerate an outsider having the ancestor totem. Sigh. I'll contact him when the time comes. Yi Guchen should know the gravity of the situation. Dragon Lady sighed. She could not leak this information. Yi Guchen's soaring serpent totem was awakened for the first time. Thus he was unable to control its aura well, causing the ripples to spread in all directions. Even Lei Jiuyo, Golden Sun Saint Sun, Yin Xuanji, Feng Xiaotian, and the other top prodigies of the barbarian tribe could feel the terrifying totem pressure. At the same time, somewhere in the ancient desolation forbidden zone, a young man with a head full of gray hair and dressed in gray robes stared coldly at Yi Guchen. His body was wrapped in chains, and his feet were bare, but his posture was incomparably robust. He was Tuoba Shang, the king of 4 crowns of the barbarian race. Translator. Transin Editor. Transin, the ancestor totem is as predicted by the priests of the 5 Elements Temple. A king of 5 crowns will be born in this war. As long as I kill that person and take away his ancestor totem, I can become the real king of 5 crowns and lead the barbarian tribe to conquer the Saint Origin dynasty. Tuoba Shang's eyes were burning with undisguised ambition. He had a high status and came from the Tuoba family, one of the 2 barbarian families in the 5 Elements Temple. The 2 barbarian families had a higher status than the 5 Elements barbarian tribe. Each of them had 1/3 of the right to speak in the 5 Elements Temple. The Tuoba family's attitude was the main reason why this war had started. The Elders Guild of the 5 Elements Temple was willing to support the Tuoba family mainly because of the existence of Tuoba Shang, the king of 4 crowns. In addition, Lord Tian Barbarian also wanted to cultivate a king of 5 crowns. Hence, he agreed to be Tuoba Shang's guardian. This time, Tuoba Shang had already made up his mind to become the invincible king of 5 crowns. Anyone who stands in my way will die. Tuoba Shang stomped on the ground with 1 foot. His body was like a dragon as he swept in the direction of the oppression. At the water element altar, Yi Guchen was finally able to control the powerful soaring serpent's power. The soaring serpent's spirit returned to Yi Guchen's body again. Yi Guchen felt that his aura had increased again. At the same time, his consciousness sea was spinning like a whirlpool. In just a short while, Yi Guchen's cultivation had broken through to the 7th transformation of the divine soul realm. It was a natural process. His comprehension of the water sword essence had also improved by leaps and bounds. Moreover, the soaring serpent totem still had many skills to be comprehended by Yi Guchen. However, it was not a good time to do so. The fluctuation just now has probably attracted the attention of the barbarian tribe. I shall leave for now. Yi Guchen's footsteps flashed as he fled. The news that he possessed the ancestor totem could not be leaked. At least, before he went to the 5 Elements Temple to obtain the sacred elixir, he could not reveal it. Not long after Yi Guchen left, several figures appeared at the same place. Almost all of them were from the barbarian tribe. However, it was a pity that they did not see anything. Not long after, a gray-haired youth arrived and looked around. It's Tuoba Shang. Some of the barbarian tribe holy sons and holy daughters stepped back. Their eyes were filled with respect and fear. The barbarian tribe worshipped the strong, and Tuobashang was almost the closest to the legendary king of 5 crowns. Humph, you left quickly. However, I will definitely find you. Tuobashang's eyes were cold as he left. After leaving, Yi Guchen began to comprehend the water sword essence while looking for other altars. After awakening the soaring serpent totem, Yi Guchen was even more determined to awaken other totems. He did not want to become the king of 5 crowns. He only wanted to comprehend the peerless sword essence of 5 elements. Next, Yi Guchen found a few more altars. However, the 5 elements sacred items on these altars were not at the level of the 9 Seas pearl. However, they slowly filled up the 5-colored golden core. 2 days later, Yi Guchen found an extremely rare fire elemental altar. There was a fire elemental sacred item on it, the red sun essence. However, the desolate beast guarding this fire elemental altar was extremely ferocious. It was a flaming demonic bull. Yi Guchen used the same method. In the end, he used the god-slaying sword technique, Permitha, to end the flaming demonic bull's life. Yi Guchen began to refine the red sun essence. However, to Yi Guchen's surprise, he felt a vibration in his origin ring. Yi Guchen used his mind, and a fiery red egg jumped out of it. Brother Condor? Yi Guchen was surprised. After absorbing the heavenly fire divine sparrow's blood essence, the divine condor turned into an egg and fell into a deep sleep. He did not expect that there would be a change at this moment. Do you need the red sun essence? Yi Guchen separated a portion of the red sun essence's power to nourish the egg. As time went by, crack! The surface of the egg was covered with cracks. Then the eggshell cracked and a childish voice was heard. Grandpa Condor has finally awakened. This time, Grandpa Condor will transform and break through the sky and become the king of all beasts. Following these bold words, a fist-sized furry and cute creature that looked like an angry little red bird jumped out. Brother Condor. Even with Yi Guchen's character, he was speechless when he saw the divine condor in such a state. Hey little Yi, why are you looking at Grandpa Condor like that? Are you envious of Grandpa Condor's handsomeness? The transformed divine condor shook its feathers and looked at Yi Guchen in confusion. Then, it lowered its head and looked at itself. Fuck, is this really Grandpa Condor? A childish voice, accompanied by vulgarities, screamed. Chapter 491. One had to admit that the divine condor looked very adorable at this moment. Its height had shrunk to the size of a fist, and its grayish-brown feathers had turned fiery red. It looked like a phoenix. But the divine condor couldn't accept such an adorable appearance. Oh heavens, oh earth, why have I become like this? How am I going to face my beautiful crane and my harem when I go back? The divine condor looked up at the sky, speechless and choked with tears. Brother Condor, you should think positively. At least, no one will mistake you for an idiot anymore. Yi Guchen comforted. Boy Yi, are you comforting me or insulting me? The divine condor cast a sidelong glance at Yi Guchen. No, but Brother Condor, your aura. Although the divine condor was only the size of a fist and looked harmless, the aura it emitted made Yi Guchen feel pressured. If he underestimated its strength because of its appearance, he would be at a disadvantage. Kaka, that's right. I have broken through and become a 5th-ranked demonic beast. The divine condor raised its little head proudly. A 5th-ranked demonic beast was comparable to a life and death realm warrior. But why do I feel like I am being suppressed here? The divine condor was puzzled. Yi Guchen said, there is a special formation here. Even life and death realm warriors will be suppressed. I see. But I need to work hard to transform now. As long as I reach the peak of the 5th rank and become the heaven and earth spiritual bridge, I should be able to change my appearance. The divine condor flapped its little wings. Having gotten used to its huge body, its current appearance was too disgusting for the divine condor. It couldn't bring out its majestic appearance. Brother Condor, can you protect me? Yi Guchen sat cross-legged on the altar, preparing to refine the remaining red sun essence. No problem, the divine condor said. With its 5th-ranked demonic beast strength, there weren't many people in the Forbidden Zone who could threaten it. Yi Guqin also began to cultivate again, preparing to awaken the vermilion bird totem. The vermilion bird totem was similar to the azure dragon totem. It was a totem that Yi Guqin had discovered early on. It had also absorbed the heavenly fire divine sparrow's blood essence and divine fire. Therefore, its transformation was slightly easier than the soaring serpent totem. On the other side, the inner court disciples of the sword sect's forest of pagodas had arrived before a gorge. After passing through this valley, we will reach the inner part of the forbidden zone. That should be where the fighting ring is located. Yan Wushuang stood in front of everyone in the inner court. She had a tall and slender figure, and she had a pair of fair and slender legs that were like ivory. She was even more eye-catching. Beside Yan Wushuang were Jiling, Chu Qingqi, Yi Xie, Li Lingxiao, and the other inner court disciples. They hadn't separated, but had always been together. I wonder where Brother Yi is right now. The commotion he's caused this time isn't small at all. Chu Qingqi sighed. He had only entered the forbidden zone for a short while, but he had already killed 3 saints. Moreover, he wasn't a second-tier tribe like the Blood Barbarian tribe. When the news spread, some of the disciples of the 7 major forces were quite excited. The inner court disciples were even more honored. Who cares what he does? He always likes to be a hero by himself. Yan Wushuang snorted coldly. She seemed to be complaining about Yi Guqin, but if one listened carefully, it sounded like a young girl's coquettishness, and also seemed to be worried about him. Chu Qingqi, Yi Xie, and the others all looked at Yan Wushuang strangely. Had the flower of the inner courtyard completely fallen into his hands? Wushuang, you don't love me anymore. Jiling hugged Yan Wushuang's arm. Her beautiful eyes filled with hidden bitterness. What are you thinking about? All right, let's hurry up. Yan Wushuang's beautiful eyes slightly evaded as she said forcefully. Yan Wushuang was originally extremely cold and arrogant, but since Yi Guqin had turned the tide alone at the exchange, Yan Wushuang's state of mind seemed to have changed. Originally, she had shouldered all the pressure of the sword sect pagoda forest alone, but now, an even colder figure was standing in front of her, blocking all the wind and rain for her. Although it might not be for her, Yan Wushuang's heart still wavered. She suppressed the chaotic emotions in her heart for the time being, and led the inner court disciples directly into the valley. Not long after they entered, Zhou Tong, who was dressed in white, stood on a rock outside the valley. He fanned himself with a faint smile on his face. The prey has already entered the trap. Yi Guqin, what should you do? If you come, you will definitely die. If you don't, the sword sect pagoda forest will be destroyed. This choice is difficult. Zhou Tong's smile carried a trace of pride. This valley was the place Zhou Tong had chosen for the inner court disciples to die. This trap was to invite the enemy into the trap. There were some weak desolate beasts in the valley that were easily killed by Yan Wushuang and the others. Yan Wushuang was also a top heaven's pride, so with her around, the inner court disciples could safely arrive here. Of course, Jiling and the others weren't weak either. However, without Bai Zichen and Wang Xiaotian, the inner court's overall strength had decreased slightly. The inner court still didn't know that Bai Zichen had died. However, right when the inner court disciples were about to cross the valley, on the road ahead, a figure stood there calmly. Dark blue long hair fluttered in the wind, and his entire body carried a ghastly cold aura. His eyes flickered with lightning. He didn't say a word, and just standing there quietly seemed to emit a suffocating aura. The Lightning Clan's peerless saint, Lei Juyo. Yan Wushuang waved her hand and indicated for the inner court disciples behind to stop. Her beautiful eyes were slightly solemn as she said, Lei Juyo, we haven't even reached the desolate ancient arena, and we're already going to determine the victor? Lei Juyo's eyes shot out oppressive cold lightning when he heard this. Victor? You're wrong. What I want is the complete destruction of your sword sect pagoda forest. His ghastly tone carried a type of coldness. Yan Wushuang's pretty face changed when she heard this. Chu Qingqi and the others immediately thought that Lei Juyo's attitude was probably because Lei Jioming had been killed by Yi Guqin. Lei Juyo, although you're the Thunder Clan's saint, you're dreaming if you want to destroy all the elites of my sword sect pagoda forest alone. Yan Wushuang rebuked coldly. Lei Juyo didn't answer. At this moment, a cold voice sounded behind the inner court disciples. If Lei Juyo isn't enough, what if I join in? The inner court disciples suddenly turned around and saw a red-haired, green-eyed youth blocking their path of retreat. Fire Clan's double crown king Yin Xuanji. Chu Qingqi's tone was extremely solemn. Haha, this place is really lively. In the air, two figures appeared like two dazzling suns. They were the two saints of the Gold Clan. One was the Triple Crown King, the Golden Sun Saint, and the other was Jin Zhanlia. The inner court disciples' expressions changed at this moment. They already felt the pressure of death. A breeze blew past, and the Wind Clan's Triple Crown King, Feng Xiaotian, who was dressed in green, also arrived. He looked at the scene in front of him with interest. The hearts of all the inner court disciples, including Yan Wushuang, were heavy. In addition, saints and saintesses from the Wood Clan and the Earth Clan had also arrived. However, they only watched from afar and did not make a move. In addition, people from the 7 major forces had also arrived. Chapter 492. After all, the barbarian tribe had caused quite a commotion. Hence, some of the geniuses from the 7 major forces had also received the news. Xian Feng and Xian Dai from the Limitless Sword sect had also arrived. They were also watching from the outside of the valley, and did not interfere. Princess Yuan Shi, Emo Lengjia and Feng Chen from the Saint Origin Academy had also arrived. Rin Tingting from the Consonance Palace had also arrived. There was even a hint of gloating in her beautiful eyes. She seemed to be very happy to see the Sword Sect Pagoda Force fall into such a situation. Logically speaking, as they were all from the 7 major forces, they should temporarily put aside their previous enmity. However, they were watching the fire from the other side of the river. They were watching with great interest. In the valley, Yan Wushuang and the others who were surrounded by the barbarian tribe felt heavy in their hearts. At this moment, how could Yan Wushuang not know that someone had set a trap for them? Especially when the location of the valley was blocked. There was no way to advance or retreat. Even the elites from the inner sect would find it difficult to escape as there were cliffs on both sides. The person who had set this place up wanted to destroy the entire Sword Sect Pagoda Forest. Who is it? Yan Wushuang was puzzled. Was it the barbarian tribe? But why was the barbarian tribe so clear about their movements? Moreover, they were all elites from the barbarian tribe. Could it be? A cold thought rose in Yan Wushuang's mind. The person who wanted to frame the Sword Sect Pagoda Forest was from the 7 major forces? Under such a situation, they still wanted to frame the people from the same camp. How vicious and ignorant they were. Yan Wushuang gritted her teeth in hatred. However, the most important thing now was how to get through this crisis. Now that you have no way out, if you kill yourselves, you can save yourself from this futile torture. Yin Xuanji said faintly. There is no such coward in the Sword Sect Pagoda Forest. Yan Wushuang unsheathed her sword. Her hair fluttered in the wind. Although she was a woman, she had a spirit that was not inferior to a man. Courageous but very stupid. Lei Juyo's eyes were cold. He did not say anything else and directly attacked. Yin Xuanji and Jin Zhanlia also attacked at the same time. How boring. The Golden Sun Saint shook his head slightly. He did not attack immediately. The Feng Clan's Triple Crown King, Feng Xiaotian, was also watching. Actually, as far as they were concerned, Lei Jioming, Yin Xuanji, and Jin Zhanlia were enough to deal with Ta Lin's group. What they truly cared about was the Swordmaster. On the other side, Chu Qingqi had also sent a message to Yi Guqin. Only Yi Guqin could resolve this predicament. Everyone, don't worry. We just have to hold on until senior brother Yi arrives. That's right. Once senior brother Yi arrives, all the barbarian race's holy sons will have to stand aside. Persevere and wait for senior brother Yi to sweep through these barbarians. At this moment, many inner academy disciples began to roar. There was no despair on their faces. Instead, they were filled with determination and confidence. It was brought to them by Yi Guqin. Every time the Sword Sect Pagoda Forest was in despair, the only person who could turn the tide and bring them hope was Yi Guqin. Yan Wushuang was a little disappointed when she heard this. Yi Guchen's current reputation in the Sword Sect Pagoda Forest was already on par with experts like Feng Manlu. However, Yan Wushuang was no longer jealous. She had to hold on until Yi Guchen arrived. At the same time, Yi Guchen was cultivating on the fire elemental altar. He had finally completely refined the Crimson Sun essence. At this moment, Yi Guchen's entire body was bathed in vermilion bird flames. He looked as if he was about to be reborn. An extremely vigorous fire elemental totem power gushed out from his body. Boom! Yi Guchen's body erupted like an ancient volcano, accompanied by a loud and clear cry. A fiery red vermilion bird spirit spread out from Yi Guchen's body. Its wings were hundreds of feet wide, and its entire body was surrounded by vermilion bird divine fire. As soon as the vermilion bird spirit appeared, an extremely hot energy swept through the surroundings. It burned all the trees within a radius of several miles, turning them into pitch-black scorched earth. What a powerful flame fluctuation! The divine condor's eyes twitched. It had absorbed the heavenly fire divine sparrow's blood essence. Logically speaking, it should not be afraid of the vermilion bird's flames. However, at that moment, the fluctuation of flames that Yi Guchen was emitting made it slightly fearful. Just like the tongue snake totem, the vermilion bird spirit's fluctuation alarmed many barbarians. Return. Yi Guchen controlled the vermilion bird spirit and returned it to his body. At the same time, the vermilion bird totem on Yi Guchen's five-colored golden core continued to release vigorous vermilion bird fire to refine Yi Guchen's body. Yi Guchen sat cross-legged while bathed in flames. It was as if he was trying to create a golden body in the fire. He immediately summoned the half-transformed flawless Vajra body. His skin, which was slightly greenish gold, was burning with the vermilion bird fire and emitted a green light. Break! Yi Guchen opened his eyes. His eyes were like crimson glass, emitting flames. His body was like true gold in the fire. It was being refined and finally transformed. Boom! Yi Guchen's body shone brightly. The flawless diamond body, which had been transformed by 50%, finally completed its transformation. Feeling the perfection of his body, Yi Guchen smiled faintly. He clenched his fist and punched out. The air seemed to be compressed to the extreme, and an ear-piercing roar erupted. A ball of air blasted through the air and smashed the ground in the distance. Little Ye's body is too strong. The divine condor was speechless. Feeling the powerful energy surging in his body, Yi Guchen's eyes shone brightly. After breaking through to the flawless diamond body, Yi Guchen's physical strength had increased several times. Moreover, with his current physical strength, he could fight against a dermic weapon with his bare hands. If this news were to spread, even the barbarians, who were known for their body refinement, would be ashamed. After completely mastering the flawless diamond body, Yi Guchen also had some understanding of the next realm. The next realm after the flawless diamond body was the indestructible diamond body. The flawless diamond body was greenish gold. The indestructible diamond body was purplish gold. Yi Guchen thought that if he could really master the purplish diamond indestructible diamond body, his physical strength would be able to fight against a heavenly tribulation weapon. That was a powerful weapon that could not be found in the entire Saint Origin dynasty. At the same time, the indestructible diamond body also had a strong recovery ability. Although it could not be reborn from a drop of blood, it could recover quickly as long as it was not seriously injured. This was the essence of the indestructible diamond body. Of course, Yi Guchen knew that it was more difficult to master the indestructible diamond body than the flawless diamond body. The physical body even had to be baptized by the heavenly tribulation. That was not something Yi Guchen could do now. I'm biting off more than I can chew. Yi Guchen shook his head with a faint smile and stopped thinking about it. At the same time, he found that his understanding of the fire sword essence had deepened. He, who had already comprehended the embryonic form of the fire sword essence, seemed to have some understanding now. At this moment, Yi Guchen sensed something and took out a jade slip from his origin ring. The smile on Yi Guchen's face disappeared after he scanned through them. His expression turned cold. "Zhou Tong, you've gone too far." Yi Guchen's tone was cold. He did not expect that Zhou Tong would target the people of the inner yard instead of encircling him. Without any hesitation, Yi Guchen brought the divine eagle to the valley where Chu Qingqi had sent the message. However, halfway there, Yi Guchen's footsteps suddenly stopped. 4 masked men suddenly appeared and blocked Yi Guchen's path. "We've searched high and low for you, only to find you by chance. We knew you would go to save the people of the Sword Sex Pagoda Forest. We've finally found you." The leader of the 4 masked men spoke in an old and hoarse voice. "You are." Yi Guchen frowned as he felt a fatal threat. The pressure and aura emitted by the 4 masked men in front of him were all at the life and death threshold level. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.